Good afternoon, everyone. It's Tuesday, May 6, 2025. This is a school board workshop, and the time is 1 p.m. Sergeant at Arms, has the front lobby been attended to?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Carlin is unavailable today. In her seat, please welcome Deputy Superintendent Dr. Ken Savage. There are 10 items on the agenda today: federal legislative update, job descriptions, recruitment and retention, budget overview, construction change order report for March 2025, construction projects by monthly update for May 2025, policy review briefing, first reading, value adjustment board, public comment, and good of the order or other business. Per board protocol, each board member should strive for 4 minutes for initial comment and 2 minutes for follow-up, with a total of 10 minutes during today's discussions. To begin today, we will start with our federal legislative update. Presenting is Chrissy Houlihan, Riley Kempton, and David Newland, Tracy Poe, and Dan McFowle from Ballard Partners. They will be joining us virtually. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, Deputy Superintendent Dr. Savage and board members. We are excited to share with you for the first time our federal community project funding requests. As mentioned, joining us today are Tracy Poe, Dan McFall with Ballard, and Chief Newland to help answer any questions you may have. Before today's meeting, everyone was provided with the 2 one-pagers shown on the screen detailing our federal community project funding requests. These will also be made available for the public on our website following today's meeting. Today, we will be providing detailed information about our community funding project requests, which present a vital component of our federal engagement strategy. These requests will allow us to secure direct federal investments for specific district needs. Next, I will go ahead and ask Tracy and Dan to explain high level what the federal community project funding request process is. Dan and Tracy, are you available? Might be muted.
Yes.
Perfect. We can hear you on our end. If you'd like to go ahead and give a high overview of that process, please.
Good afternoon to the board, and Chrissy, good afternoon. I know my colleague Dan McFall is on and has a limited amount of time, so I'm happy to be here with you all. And first of all, I'd like to bring greetings on behalf of Ballard Partners in Washington, D.C. Dan, if you would like to go first, I know you have a limited amount of time, and then I'd be happy to talk about the community project request from Lee County Public Schools.
Yeah, Tracy, why don't you talk about the community funded project requests first, and then I'll get into atmospherics in Washington and the legislative outlook.
So the legislative appropriations process in Washington usually begins with the president submitting his budget. We are in a new administration, as all of you know. The Trump administration came in January 21st. So anytime we start with a new administration, things are a little bit slower than they normally would be, but begins with the president submitting his budget to Congress. And once that budget is submitted, the process formally begins. And the president's budget is submitted to Congress. The Appropriations Committee then has an opportunity to set budget limits for each of the 12 appropriations bills. We have mandatory spending. That's predetermined spending that does not require annual appropriations. Those are entitlement programs like Social Security, Medicare, etc. That's about 70 to 73% of the federal spending. And then there's discretionary spending. And the 12 appropriations bills make up the the discretionary spending. That's about 23 to 24% of the federal budget, and that is where the community project funding falls. Those 12 bills include agriculture, um, commerce, justice, defense, energy and water, financial services and general government, homeland security, interior, environment and related agencies, labor, health and human services, legislative branch appropriations, military construction and veteran affairs, national security, Department of State and related agencies, transportation, housing, and urban development. So once the Appropriations Committee sets the funding numbers for those 12 bills, the process begins. This year, we are fortunate to be able to have what we call community project funding. Many of you may know that as what's called earmarks in the past. There are guidelines that are set by the Appropriations Committee, and each member has an opportunity to file in the House and the Senate, has an opportunity to put in request. Um, each House member has a 15 request limit, and in the case for the two members that we submitted for Lee County Public Schools, it was Representative Byron Donalds and Representative Stubbe. We submitted two requests, and Christy, I don't know if you have the slide or everyone has the packet.
Riley and I were going to get into that next, so if you want to switch over to Dan, we could do that, if that works for you.
Okay, would you like?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we can talk
Yeah,
about the two requests in more detail in a moment, but we did submit two requests. One was for the vestibules and the school hardening, and the other request Chrissy, was for the
Systems.
the entryway request, and we can talk about those further.
Thanks, Tracy. I'm going to talk just more generally legislative outlooks in Washington and in Congress, and try to give you guys a better sense of timing of when the House and Senate will get together and pass their appropriations bills for discretionary spending for fiscal year 2046. I'm sure a lot of you have heard a lot of the focus right now in Washington is on the budget reconciliation process. The budget reconciliation process is an authorizing process as opposed to an appropriations process. So this is just Congress setting a budget for itself and then adjusting that budget. It's basically a blueprint for the appropriators to follow as they're funding the federal agencies through these different appropriations bills. The main reason the House and Senate are working on the budget reconciliation process is to extend the expiring Trump tax cuts that expire on September 30th, 2025, the end of fiscal year 25. So the House is going first. They're working through the process. The House is paying for the tax cuts, so it's a $4.5 trillion 10-year value that they have to trim from the budget or add revenue streams into the federal government to offset that. So there's a lot of cuts in the House process. The Senate has a slightly different set of rules, and they don't have to pay for the additional the additional tax credits. So it's less of a fiscal impact on the agencies, and therefore fewer cuts through the process. The House has set a target of Memorial Day to get the budget reconciliation process finished. There are committees that are marking up their portion of the bill this week, and then next week, the House Ways and Means Committee and the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which are two very critical pieces of the budget reconciliation process, they're going to mark up their bill, which means they amend it and send it to the full House for consideration. I would not be surprised if that deadline doesn't push into June. There was just a lot of work to be done, and there's a very narrow majority in the House, a 4-seat majority for the Republicans. So it's a very tedious process, a tenuous process moving forward. So I would not be surprised if that pushed into June. The Senate's a little bit behind the House. They're going to really get into their process in June. So we could see movement in July, but I wouldn't be surprised if they pushed until after the August recess into the month of September, sometime shortly after Labor Day. I go into all this detail and I talk about this because this takes up valuable floor time in the House and Senate, and it's going to affect and probably slow down the appropriations process. Even though the committees in the House and the committees in the Senate are beginning to put together their pieces of the appropriations bills, the time on the floor to actually pass the bills is getting limited. I would anticipate that the Congress ends up passing a continuing resolution to keep the federal government open and funded at 2025 levels rather than moving the fiscal year 2026. I would expect that they would do that for probably a 3-month period of time or to the end of the calendar year. And I would anticipate, best guess right now is looking at a December timeline for the full appropriations package passing the House and Senate. So that would be the timeline for final notification as far as the congressional project funding process and when we would know exactly that the monies would be coming. We will have some indications along the way as the House and Senate pass their individual bills. We'll be able to identify our projects that made it into the appropriations process. But until it's signed by the president, it's not law. It's not the case. And I anticipate it's going to be end of this calendar year before that process is completed by Congress. And I will pass it back with that, and happy to answer any questions about the process.
Thanks, Dan. And one of the things I want to just add is that we will, as Dan mentioned, we will be tracking and working with Christy and Riley throughout this process. We'll be tracking the community project funding throughout the intercom systems as well as the vestibule projects, and letting you all know along the way where they are each step of the way through the markup process, as well as once the bills hit the floor and as they go through conference and are reconciled between the House and the Senate, and making sure that we work with our House members as well as our senators so that we can keep the projects in the bill and hopefully maintain them as we get towards the end of the year.
Thank you, Tracy and Dan. Next, we will give a high-level overview of the school district's requests. Our first federal community project funding request is to assist the district in replacing outdated intercom systems that will strengthen the district's safety and security. Some of the details we will go over with you include who we submitted the requests with, why it's important, and how much the total project will cost, the amount of our request, and how much the district has invested in this far. We submitted this project with Congressman Byron Donalds, as mentioned previously, due to his district covering the majority of the Lee County School District. The project funding requests require us to take into consideration the amount of constituents impacted within the congressional district. Now, why is this project important? Safety is our district's #1 priority. With increasing threats and incidents nationwide, we must be proactive rather than reactive in protecting our schools. Currently, with this ask, we're addressing technical challenges with intercom systems at 57 schools that require modernization to ensure reliable emergency communications. These upgrades will enhance our ability to quicken alert and inform during all situations, strengthening our existing safety measures for approximately 57,000 students and 11,400 staff members. This upgrade will modernize 4 legacy systems, integrate with strategic panic alerts for Alyssa's law compliance, and address technological vulnerabilities. We've already seen how effective alert systems have helped save students' lives through rapid AED deployment. In today's environment, consistent and reliable communication is essential. This investment ensures dependable, district-wide alerts and comprehensive emergency coverage throughout all school areas, demonstrating our proactive commitment to the safety of everyone in our schools. Our total project costs, including projects we have already invested in as a district, is $50,021,861. And for the federal community project funding, we are requesting $7 million towards this, which will help us finalize modernizing our intercom systems at all of our school locations. This far, the district has spent and committed, with grants included, a total of $43,021,861, which means out of the $50,021,861, the district will have an 86% matching. This demonstrates our commitment to local funding participation, which strengthens our request, showing we are investing not only our own resources, but also not just seeking external financial support as well.
Our second funding request also focuses on school safety and hardening our schools with the installation of vestibules at the remaining schools that do not yet have them. Before we get too far into this one, you may be wondering, what is a vestibule? A vestibule is an enclosed space or small room that creates a buffer zone between exterior and interior doorways, serving as a security checkpoint where visitors can be verified before gaining access to the main building, pictured on the screen above. We also submitted this project with Congressman Byron Donalds for the same reason for the first request, that this project will cover the majority of his district and the constituents he serves. This project is important to increase safety measures with the addition of 65 secure vestibules that create a crucial secondary barrier once going through our open gate security systems. This enclosed space between exterior and interior doorways significantly improves our security posture. These enhancements provide both immediate protection and valuable buffer zones during emergencies. By implementing systems that meet national safety standards recommended by experts and law enforcement, we'll strengthen our security protocols while maintaining a positive learning environment. This project represents a necessary and responsible step forward in protecting our students and our staff. The total projected cost for all phases is $23.4 million. We are asking for $10,050,000 to cover phase one. The community project funding of $10,050,000, complemented by $4,384,000 in district funds, represents a 43.6% match, which again represents our district's financial commitment and shared investment approach.
And with that, we want to say thank you for your time. I would also like to take a moment to thank the county commissioners, specifically Commissioner Hammond, the Lee County Sheriff's Office, the Cape Coral Police Department, the Fort Myers Police Department, and the Sanibel Police Department for their letters of support for both of these requests. And at this time, are there any comments, questions, or items for discussion? And I believe we will still have Tracy as well connected if you have federal questions.
Thank you. Dr. Savage, do you have anything?
No, I don't. I stand ready to answer any questions that we can, and just to thank the government relations team as well as our federal lobbyists and Mr. Newland for their assistance on this work.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fisher, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. This question is more for Ms. Powell and Mr. McFall. Appreciate the projects we're going forward with. It looks excellent, but with all the changes in DC, especially the Department of Education right now, we're looking as the future of the school district. How are you as a company going to engage federal stakeholders? Essentially, and what I'm asking you is, what is your value to us as a school district and the taxpayers of Lee County?
Well, thank you for that question. I do want to just compliment your team, first of all, and let you know that you have really strong projects. And let me just say that these projects are actually Department of Homeland Security projects. They're not Department of Education projects. But with that said, I think that we are in a time when having federal representation, it could not be more critical because of all of the varied changes that are taking place with this administration. It's really important to have access to people who have their finger on the pulse of all the change and influence. And I believe that the the team here at Ballot Partners does have its finger on the pulse of the change and the influence, knowing how and when to make the connections and making sure that you understand the workings of government, who to call, knowing when to push and when to pull, when to when to make sure that you're, need to legislate, or when to regulate, and how to navigate the agencies that are involved, how to access information about grants and opportunities, and the changing nature of all of the grants that are taking place and changing with Doge and all of those things. It's really important to make sure that your federal representatives can help you navigate that. And I know Dan may want to chime in here, but I think that now more than ever, as administrations change, and the federal government and the face of the federal government changes, having federal representation is critical.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, Fisher, for the question. Appreciate that. So, as Tracy noted, there is a lot of delta happening right now within the new administration. We're seeing some restructuring across a variety of agencies, including the Department of Education, NOAA, HUD, Small Business Administration. Some areas that we depend on for grant monies. So, Tracy's expertise again allowed us to make our requests through the Department of Homeland Security rather than Department of Education, where funding is more secured and more predictable moving forward. But Tracy also hit the nail on the head. Being able to navigate and keep up with these changes is critically important at this juncture. Some of these things are literally changing hour to hour and day to day. So our full team is committed to tracking those changes and adjusting where funding requests, grant applications, and other places might go into the federal government. The two biggest things I think that we bring to the table is, number one, our know-how. Tracy spent nearly 20 years on the Hill working for appropriators. There's no finer expert on the appropriations process, how it actually works inside the committee rooms, and how the discussions happen within the specific member's office. Tracy knows that very well. I also spent 20 years on Capitol Hill on the authorizing side, working for a variety of Florida members of Congress, and understand the authorizing process as well as the appropriations process. But the other aspect that we bring is our relationships and the folks that we know within the Florida delegation, within the House and Senate Republican and Democrat leadership, and within this new Trump administration. That's where we can bring the relationship building into the process. And again, thank you for the question.
Thank you. That answers my question. I appreciate your work.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ribble.
Yeah, can you give us an idea what the timeline is on a project like this?
Yes, sir. Again, we're basing this on recent history in Congress, and also taking into consideration the budget reconciliation process that's moving this spring, taking up a lot of valuable floor time. I think Tracy and I are both anticipating a end of calendar year end omnibus appropriations bill or multi-bus appropriations bill, where they combine several of the 12 individual appropriations bills into little packages of bills moving forward. The last couple of years, Congress has not met its statutory deadline of September 30th to pass all 12 appropriations bills and have them on the president's desk. They've been typically in December and sometimes as late as March. So right now we're forecasting a December deadline for when we should know what our projects are finally going to look like and be presented to the president for signature.
Right. And so you would be drawing down funds in the, first quarter of
26.
Okay. Ms. Giovanelli?
I'll be quick. First of all, I just want to thank you. And thank the government team, because this is the first time in my tenure, and I've been on the board now for 2 terms and going into my 3rd term, and this has never been this robust. First of all, we've never had a lobbyist in the time that I've been on the board, so I'm excited of the monies that I know we've missed out on monies, because this is a conversation that I've had with 2 prior superintendents for the last couple years, finding these things out. There's earmarks that we're missing, and so I'm excited about what the Ballard team is going to bring to Lee County. So, and I just want to thank you for your efforts.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your kind comments. We certainly appreciate that. And as you noted, this process of the community project funding is a zero-sum game. There are winners and losers in this. So every edge that we could give Lee County School Board, and being with the right members, having conversations with the right chairman on the appropriations committees, and giving us the best chance for funding is what Tracy and I are here to do. And again, we appreciate your kind comments, and we look forward to working hard for the team.
Board members, any other comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tracy and Dan. Thank you, Tracy and Dan.
Next, on the agenda are job descriptions. Presenting to us this afternoon is Dr. Shanna Johnston and Suzette Rivera.
Good afternoon. Am I on? All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, Deputy Superintendent Savage, and Board Attorney Dupree-Bruno. It is a pleasure to be here today to present to you many job descriptions. We have 5 revisions and then several that are part of the reorganization. And so we're just going to open up this time for discussion and any questions that you have.
Thank you. Board members, any comments or questions? Mr. Fisher.
Thank you. Dr. Johnson, can you give me just a quick overview of the human resources representative and kind of what their role is or will be?
Yes, sir. Currently, we have several positions within human resources that cover our front desk area. So this person would be like a clerk typist type of position that would be a representative as people come into our area, the first really representative of human resources to greet people and to direct people where they need to go within our human resources division.
Thank you, and I'm kind of glad to hear that, especially as that, the first person as you come to human resources, having that, kind of the spectacular customer service. I'm looking forward to that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, board members, on job descriptions? Mr. Ribble?
Yeah, I just have one. As far as the Assistant Director for Capital Maintenance, do we have somebody in mind already for that or no?
I don't believe so.
I can take that. So this is one of the positions that we open up to the field to apply. So if the board were to approve this position, our intention would be to advertise that position tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Jordan?
So, thank you, Mr. Ribble. So with that, saying that, most of these positions, though, that we are approving, there are human capital already tied into these positions, with the exception of that one?
Yeah, great question. So these positions, and I'm only referring to the ones that are a direct result of the reorganization work. Those are all with an intention of a July 1 start for all of those positions. Every single one of them is part of our budgeted agreement, which we mentioned to the board and briefed the board on, showing kind of the different movement of the different positions. This one, the specific director over capital planning and maintenance, would again supervise two specific areas. That would be the planning department and the maintenance department. Each one of those is led by an assistant director position as well.
Any other questions? Okay, that's all. Oh, Ms. Giovanelli.
So out of these positions, how many are going to start to advertise, you're going to advertise starting tomorrow? Like, can you, because there's a lot here. So I'm curious, are every one of these going to be advertised or?
No, ma'am. We have 11 positions that will be advertised
11.
tomorrow from this list, yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Jordan?
Thank you. Ms. Giovanelli, you made me think again. So out of 31 new positions, because 5 are revised, so there's 31, and out of the 31, there's 11 that will have to be advertised. All the other ones are being, people are already being placed in those other positions. And they're just waiting for us to approve this so that they can be placed there. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I just want to be precise as we try to answer that. So obviously, a number of job descriptions here, and I really just want to give a moment to just really recognize the tremendous work that the HR division has done to kind of organize this work, because they're having to simultaneously balance job descriptions, but also the implications it has on our employees. And so I just want to give a nod to a tremendous amount of work that the HR division has done in that respect. So to answer your question directly, we do have a number of employees within this area that would be transferred pending board approval, of course. And again, we've given the employees the front end notice to understand how this would impact their particular area. We've communicated with those employees, so they're aware of what we would be bringing forward to the board as a recommendation. And then, of course, if the board were to accept that recommendation, then we would move forward with what we've communicated to those employees and that we have organized in that list of different folks.
So then, if I may, so once this is approved, then those people other than the 11 would then be notified, and then in July, when they would come before us to approve all the employees again. Is that correct?
So as the reappointments that come in June, all of the subsequent moves with existing employees that are being transferred or any of those different actions would all be coming in front of the board with a July 1 start date. That's correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Giovanelli?
So the 11 new positions, they're technically new, and right? Or they're not, they're open, I should say, right? So are those all within the budget, have been budgeted? Are these going to be in the 2026 budget?
I'm happy to jump on that as well. So yes, when we proposed the reorganization, that part of that was demonstrating the budget. We're supporting all those units for a July 1 start date. That is absolutely how it was all designed to be funded. Pleasure.
Seeing no other questions, thank you so much. Thank you. Moving on, next is the recruitment and retention presentation by Dr. Shannon Johnston, Cheryl Neely, and Sharice Trent.
All right, well, hello again. All right, good afternoon. We are here today to share with you a recruitment and retention update. I would like to begin by reviewing the agenda for today's presentation. First, we will be sharing the results of the 4-month recruitment initiative, and what we learned from this initiative. Then we will share a transparent view into the current state of our retention efforts and strategically where we will focus on our next steps. Finally, we will have time for board feedback and discussion. We realize within the Envision 2030, one of our strategic priorities that align to our vision and mission is recruiting and developing and retaining highly effective staff. However, for this presentation, we are going to hone in on recruiting and retaining exceptional teachers and aligning this to which is aligned to our most recent priorities. So to begin, we will give you an update on the 4-month recruitment initiative that began in January of this year. At the start of the 4-month initiative, we reported 211 instructional vacancies. After completing an audit of the original 211 vacancies, we now have 31 that remain open and advertised. This is a decrease of 179 vacancy advertisements with an 85% decrease. We have 17 of these that are core instructional. So I'm going to share with you the difference between total and core instructional. Self-contained classrooms, self-contained classrooms, teachers that have students in their classroom, and ESC are considered our core classrooms. Teachers like coaches, speech and language pathologists, so on and so forth, would be considered within the total, if that makes sense. We learned many things from this process of the 4-month recruitment initiative. We have many audiences with bachelor's degrees that we tapped. Guest teachers, instructional support, district personnel, and the community. The pathway, what we learned is the pathway to certification is complex and it takes a while, takes longer than we acknowledged in many cases. Every pathway is personal and unique, requiring custom support. Anyone who came or showed up to one of the events that we held was reached out to individually and walked through their own process and pathway to certification. Barriers were voiced in these conversations, and we began to develop patterns, and we began to mitigate these patterns through partnerships within our community. Testing was one of them. We kept hearing patterns of, I am having a hard time passing the subject area test. So we partnered with learning liaisons within our community and used some title funding and was able to provide test prep for some of our people trying to prepare for their certification test, subject area test. We had 49 who accessed that. Once finished, we also heard another barrier that over and over a pattern, it's costly to take the subject area test, which is $150 a pop. And we partnered with Future Makers, which we're very grateful for, who, if these candidates reached out to, they offered to pay for them to take the test. And we had some people take that offer up. Language was another barrier. So Mary Hamner and Talent Management partnered with Brian Mangan, and they created and set up a course that our people could access to help with easing the language barrier. So you can see that this became more of a long-term initiative and not just a 4-month initiative. What we learned is that what I just said is really becoming a long-term initiative, but our pipeline for having more certified teachers is becoming stronger, right, in the process. Priority marketing was another partner that we used to reach out to our community in general with bachelor's degrees so that we could access our community as well. So beginning at the end of March, we began calling the schools that still had openings from the original 211, and we talked through their master scheduling. We had conversations about current staff and certifications. Basically, we help brainstorm to get creative so more of our students could have a certified teacher in front of them. We also began a cadence of meetings with our ESC district staff to begin brainstorming solutions. You can see here on the right that 11 of the 31 openings are speech and language pathologists. Through these conversations with our ESC district staff, we are now centralizing the hiring of our speech language pathologist. We are entertaining the thought of using a virtual model for our speech language pathologist. And we are moving, and this is a national movement actually, and we learned this from having some of our staff go to a conference, moving from a caseload to workload. This shift allows us to recognize not just how many students are served, but understanding the depth of the services they need, and then aligning our resources accordingly. One more piece of data that's very interesting that we started tracking through this 4-month initiative is how many teachers we have hired since August and how many have separated from our district. We have hired 197 teachers since August 28th of 2024, 197. However, 253 have separated from us. So we are losing teachers faster than we can hire them. We know recruitment is important, of course, and our recruitment team, I want to give them kudos, is doing a phenomenal job recruiting teachers for our district. But we have to focus on retention, which is a large part of the why in regards to a part of the reorganization. In human resources, we will now have a new department called Organizational Development and Retention. We have 3 houses, or we will have 3 houses beginning July 1st. And the first one you can see is Human Capital Operations in the light orange. That house basically focuses in on recruitment, I'm sorry. The middle house, Employee Relations, those departments basically focus on retention. However, the Organizational Development and Retention department, all of the areas in light blue are gaps. Transparently, we do not do a really great job at focusing on retention in our district. So if you look at the areas of all division development, we do a great job at developing our teachers, but what about our custodians and our cafeteria and all the other divisions? That has not been developed. Career pathways, succession planning. Our career pathways, we're just starting that work now by this reorganization. It is going to allow us to have career pathways for our employees, which in corporate America and our top quartile school districts in the nation, according to the Greater City Schools, is one of the #1 strategies that does not exist in Lee County, and we're going to build it out. Employee engagement, rewards and recognition, culture and job satisfaction, leadership development. We are just beginning to really get a handle on our leadership development, but still have a ways to go to build that out as well. So within our new organizational structure, we will establish metrics to measure our progress, retention rates, culture and engagement survey through Hanover, which is happening, I believe, within the next week or so, stay and exit surveys and interviews, and then implementing high-impact strategies that affect large percentages of our employees. We are too big to be dealing with one teacher, one person at a time. Our strategies have to affect a lot of people at a time to make the needle move and make sure that we are benchmarking against the best in class. We are taking a deliberate approach to retain staff and are positioning the department to respond to the need. So starting at the top of the circle with culture and engagement, this is the foundation of every school department, school and division. Every department, school and division. And it is all about leadership, which is why a robust leadership development program is critical, and we will continue to build this out. Career pathways and succession planning. It's one of the top one of the top high effect size strategies for employee retentions. and the reorganization, which I've already said has positioned us for this strategy. Compensation, as you all know, our bargaining teams right now are hard at work, and we have to get competitive with our neighboring districts and focus on differentiation. Rewards and recognition, we have started, but need to drastically expand this to touch a larger percentage of our staff, not just teachers. And retention programs. I want to highlight the staff daycare that we started this year at G. Weaver Hips. This staff daycare is an initiative that we are very excited about. Last year, I brought forward this idea to Angela Nader, who was then the director of the Early Learning Center, to have a staff daycare for our school district staff, ages 6 weeks old to 4 years old. When I was an assistant principal and principal, I used to have this program at the schools that I worked at, and it was a huge staff retention piece. And it kind of went by the wayside over the years, and I thought, we need to bring this back. So we piloted it at G. Weaver Hips and partnered with the Child Care of Southwest Florida, and it has been a great success. So much so that we are bringing forward an MOU tonight to expand it to 5 more schools with a possible impact of over 360 staff members. And we just hope that it will continue to grow and we can keep on expanding it for years to come. So please take a look at this recruitment and retention program. Well, hopefully it'll work.
In its first year, the Early Learning Center at G. Weaver Hips Elementary School is already making a meaningful impact. It provides teachers with the opportunity to work while their children receive quality care and early childhood education just steps away right next door.
Knowing that he is being cared for by professionals who know what they're doing is it's heartwarming.
I drop her off in her building and then I walk right over to mine. I don't have to make another stop in the morning.
This program was designed with teachers in mind. The pre-K program is free for district employees, and the Child Care of Southwest Florida operates 2 additional classrooms within the center, offering discounted rates for their services.
You walk in and you can feel the love that's taking place in the building. You can see the happiness everywhere around you. There's every sense that you can use tells you that this is a good place to be.
It's like at home. It's a very homey feeling here. Everyone welcomes you with open arms. This is my first year here, and as well as in the district. I think that's like every parent teacher's dream, to be able to have their kid at the school with them.
They know that it's the best place their child can be. And their child knows that mom or dad is very close.
At G. Weaver Hips Elementary School, they believe in investing in their teachers as much as they invest in their students. They've created a space where families can thrive and educators can focus on what they do best. Riley Spicker, Lee Schools TV.
So today, I would like to ask Tammy Aronson and Kim Malloy of Child Care of Southwest Florida, and Marixa Velasquez and Vicaria Hallback, teachers at G. Weaver Hips, to please stand. They're here in the audience. They have worked very hard for the pilot at G. Weaver Hips, and we would just like to recognize them today. And we're very grateful for the partnership with Child Care of Southwest Florida. You're truly impacting and helping our recruitment and retention efforts, so thank you. At this time, Ms. Neely and Ms. Trent will continue our presentation regarding retention.
Thank you, Dr. Johnston. And as Dr. Johnston has stated, we are committed not only to recruiting high-quality educators, but also to retaining them. To do so, we need to look closely and examine our data and compare our retention trends with those of neighboring districts. In 2023-24, the national average teacher retention rate was 87%, and our current data shows that we have room for improvement. Neighboring districts are reporting higher retention rates, underscoring the urgency for us to strengthen our efforts. It's critical that we understand why teachers are leaving and implement evidence-based strategies that support and retain our staff. Teacher retention is vital, and we recognize the challenge ahead and are fully committed to making meaningful progress.
Continuing with retention data, the data presented here pertains to the district's key performance indicators, KPI 6.1, which focuses on increasing employee retention. This is monitored through the turnover rates for each employee segment that's outlined. Let's look at the column titled Baseline. This official baseline began in October of 2023. The baseline here is explained as follows. Teacher retention was 83.8%, which indicates the baseline turnover rate was 16.2%. In other words, 83.8% of teachers continued their employment with the district, which translates to 16.2% leaving the district. Now let's look at the column titled 23-24 actual results. Last year, we increased our teacher retention to 84.4%, which means our turnover rate in this segment reduced to 15.6%. Next, our staff retention increased to 85%, which translates into a reduction of turnover in this segment to 15%. And for administrators' retention, it remained relatively the same. As you can see, the district strategic plan sets a target of reducing employee turnover by 1% each year over the next 4 years. You may be curious about how we compare to national standards. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average turnover rate across all sectors ranges from 12% to 16%. Next, we will discuss our retention efforts and initiatives.
Retention is definitely something that we all are accountable for, and we can all help to impact. And as our cross-divisional team works together, we have some retainment efforts that we're going to be doing to ensure that we are retaining our staff. The first is to improve compensation and benefits. Competitive pay is definitely a baseline for retention. When salaries are lower than neighboring districts, it's difficult to retain talent. So we have in place our Evergreen study, which we have completed phase 1, and we are currently in phase 2, where differentiation is being considered. Another area that we know will impact retention is professional learning, and focusing primarily on our leadership. So currently, leadership development is a primary factor in retention, and effective leadership plays a pivotal role in reducing turnover. Strong school leadership is often cited as one of the top reasons teachers choose to stay in a school or leave. Investing in leadership development is therefore one of the most strategic moves districts can make to improve teacher retention. So some things that we currently have in place, we have our AP development program, which prepares strong teacher leaders or current assistant principals for school leadership roles. We have Level 2 Principal Certification Program, which ensures principals are well prepared and certified for long-term success. We have a Leadership Mentor Program, which supports newer emerging leaders through intentional coaching relationships. And our Leadership Pipeline Project. This is identifying and developing future leaders at all levels, teachers, APs, and instructional coaches. The Leadership Pipeline identifies and supports potential teacher leaders early, providing coaching, mentorship, and formal leadership training, and helps retain teachers by giving clear local pathways for growth. We also have principal leadership development, which is ongoing growth for our sitting principals. And this focuses on the real work, so leading change, building culture, and managing our talent. And coming this summer, we have training for all of our leaders on the 4 essential roles of leadership, which is COVEY. And the purpose of this is a framework for aligned leadership practices. The COVEY model focuses on modeling, pathfinding, aligning, and empowering. It emphasizes the importance of principle-centered leadership. It outlines a framework for personal and interpersonal effectiveness, focusing on building strong relationships and achieving goals and leading with integrity.
Continuing our cross-disciplinary retainment efforts, the next area of focus is collecting and acting on feedback. Gathering data on school culture, safety, and turnover rates at the district and school levels is essential for understanding employees' perceptions. In January, we began distributing employee surveys in these areas to establish a baseline for how employees feel valued by our organization. This collection of perception data will continue through May. The results will be provided to the regional associate superintendents and principals to review the data and create plans to improve teacher retention. The final area of focus for our cross-divisional efforts is advocating for policy change. You heard about this a little bit earlier. By working with our government relations team, we can identify barriers that make recruitment and retention more challenging. This will enable us to advocate for changes in those areas identified as barriers. Additionally, it is important to maintain a positive partnership with our employee union in order to negotiate better terms and conditions for our employees. These efforts represent our overarching district-wide strategies. Ms. Trent will now discuss the initiatives at our school sites.
So at our school sites, one of the things that's very critical is that we foster a positive school culture. And we have 4 ways that we can do that. There are probably many, but we're going to focus on 4. And one is supportive leadership. And this is training school leaders to be able to provide constructive feedback, emotional support, and workload distribution for staff. Also to recognize and appreciate. So we want to celebrate teachers, their achievements and their milestones. Also open communication where teachers have a voice and they can participate in decision making. And finally, to support new teachers, which is pairing them with a mentor, having regular check-ins, and providing coaching as needed. Another area is to address workload stress and work-life balance. So one of the ways we can do that is by having adequate staffing and alleviating any non-teaching responsibilities from our staff. Providing planning time, allocating time during the school day for lesson preparation and collaboration, having reasonable expectations and avoiding excessive demands, allowing time off for personal days without any stigma, and providing boundaries, encouraging teachers to disconnect from work hours to prevent burnout. And finally, but very important, to invest in student behavior support. And there are some ways that we can do this within our school setting. One is classroom management training by equipping all teachers with the skills that they need to handle behavioral challenges effectively. Counseling and mental health services to increase access to these services for students and staff. To have a clear discipline action, ensuring consistency and fairness in handling disciplinary issues. And then our resiliency standards, providing students with the tools to make positive decisions.
We have discussed with you how we are going to have an intentional focus on recruitment and retention. There are 3 key goals that the school district aims to achieve. 1, decrease instructional vacancies annually to 0 by the first day of school. This indicates a strong commitment to ensuring that all classrooms are staffed with qualified instructors from the beginning of the school year, avoiding disruptions to student learning. 2, increase retentions from 84% in 23-24 to 90% in the school year 28-29. This 5-year period this goal sets a target for improving employee retention over a 5-year period. It aims to increase stability within the workforce, reducing turnover and its associated costs and negative impacts. And lastly, increase the employee's perception of being valued by the organization. This outcome focuses on the importance of employee morale and job satisfaction. This is a baseline year, so no specific values are provided. Thank you for your time. We now look forward to superintendent comments and board discussion.
Dr. Savage, do you have any comments?
Well, first off, there's so many different areas. Thank you for the team, and I understand it's cross-divisional, but just thank you for the team for sharing a substantial update, really, both on the superintendent's challenge of reducing the 2 and 11 to 0. I know that was the May 1st deadline, so thank you for giving us an update on that, as well as for going a bit deeper and talking about the retention aspect, because we can talk about recruitment all we want, but if we don't retain the people we have, and I appreciate your comments about development as well. But that said, there was a lot of material covered there, so I'm more interested in hearing really where the different board member questions, and I'll try to support the best I can with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ribble?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say congratulations on the great job of recruiting. You folks really hit a home run in a short amount of time, closing the gap from 211 down to 31. However, there are some areas we still need to work on, and you hit the nail right on the head when it comes to retention. And moving the needle 1% a year is not going to get this thing fixed. We gotta really start thinking a little differently how we're going to do this. I still, you heard me say the word succession plan. That's the key. I think the district, being around, visiting the different schools, you do an excellent job of succession planning when it comes to vice principals and principals. But outside the box in the other jobs, I'm not seeing that happening. And these new job descriptions we have, I would have hoped, I didn't want to drill you folks in every job description, but I would have hoped that you would, as you looked at a job description, say, you know what, I have 3 or 4 folks that work here in the district that are qualified to step into those shoes. Until we can do that, forget having a culture. You're not going to have a culture, a loyal culture, unless you can do that. So those are my comments, but I think you got a good plan here. Hopefully can get this thing executed, but we need to step up the heat on this retention a little bit, because the 1% is not going to make a home run for you. But thank you.
Mr. Persons?
I agree retention's important, but how much of our loss of that more or less 15% that we lose every year are for retirements? Do we have a number for that, just an approximate number? Because that's not going to change. I mean, if it's 5% every year or 10% every year. Also, what is our total number of teachers right now? Not exactly, but just approximately. Approximately 1,500.
5,800.
5,800, okay, so that means you're going to have 580 plus almost 700 and something new teachers next year, just from the ones leaving, that 15%. So I just want the public to realize that we're down to 31, but right now we're really looking at 500 and something plus 31. Because I assume you're all ready to start advertising for those new ones. And that's important. So that's a tough job, and it's going to be every year. But I would love to have the number of average retirements, and that would help a lot. Thank you.
I'll get that to you.
Dr. Savage?
It's less than 100, but total teachers in terms of retirement. We actually track that when annually we'll put out, the amount of ones that we've retained, recruited, as well as retirements as a subgroup of that. And it varies, of course, as you imagine, year by year. It actually diminished once they extended the drop to the 8-year period that allowed folks to not just retire, but to work an additional few years before they had it. But it was just around 100 or a little bit less.
And if I may, to comment on Mr. Ribble's comment on the 1%, I agree with you. It's not going to cut it. And we actually had that conversation and wanted to change that slide because, but we didn't, because it is part of our strategic plan and Envision 2030. But we really, truly do need to revise it. We have in our capital plan for our 5 schools that are going to be built within the next 4 or 5 years, which we're going to need 300 more teachers approximately on top of what we already need, right? And so I agree with you, the 1% a year is not going to cut it. So we really have our work cut out for us, which is why we need those high impacts. We really have to focus on the high impact recruitment and retention strategies.
Ms. Neely, did you want to comment also?
Yeah, additionally, really this is about controlling the parts that we can control. Every year you're going to have employees go for personal reasons that are beyond the school district's control. So the idea of having 100% is not something that's realistic, right? Because every year you're going to have those personal items that take over. And so really looking at it from the lens of what are the pieces that as a school district and as a school specific that we can control, those are the items that we want to maintain focus on so that we can control them. Thank you.
Mr. Fisher?
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. Glad to hear again about teacher retention culture. I mean, I know many of us have been up here for quite a while, and it's kind of something, it's been a lot of talk before, and with some of the things I've seen lately, I'm seeing it's beyond the talk, so I really appreciate that. I'm glad to hear about that. I mean, again, the focus on culture, leadership, school leadership, I think, again, that was another thing with our regional associate superintendents, I think really helps identify and strengthen our school-based cultures and leadership. I think that's a big part of that element, and I've seen that. So the other thing I think is amazing, and I hope we continue to focus on it, you talked about succession planning, career pathways. I mean, you hear it from teachers, even mentorship, like how, it's kind of mysterious to some of how did they become an AP, how do they, come into different positions. So I know that will help strengthen that. I actually do have a question that might be for the deputy superintendent as well, and it came up in one of the slides about the Evergreen study. Maybe I want to clean up a little bit of misnomer. Is the Evergreen study, is it a solution or is it a tool?
That sounds like you got me into a binary choice there. So an either or, true or false, right? So I would say it's both, really. So part of what you offer through Evergreen is elevating the conversation to make sure you're talking about more of the factors that you need to be kind of thinking about as you approach this very complex work. The second thing, though, is they do build very specific tools that can be utilized to help you. And so we actually, ironically, at 11 o'clock today, we are meeting with Evergreen. I'm actually meeting with Evergreen tomorrow morning as well. So they are a partner in this work, and we consulted them to really help us. But the reality is Evergreen will have an end, and we will still have a great deal of challenge left to go. In fact, I would argue we'll probably never be done with this work, because the reality is both compensation, while they're assisting us in the compensation, really some of the most important work in our district right now is this human resources work. It's really, compensation is just one piece of it, and they provide, I think, some real value in certain components of that conversation, but there's so much more to do, and we're just excited to do that work. So I'm not trying to evade your question. I would just say it isn't really that simple. They are providing solutions files, they're providing expertise, they're providing guidance on some of the parameters that we utilize, but they're also good thought partners in the sense of what they're trying to offer us. But they're just one component of this process for us.
And that answers my question. I appreciate that, actually. I just wanted to make sure, because some of the school-based and public looks at it as the total solution for everything. And Dr. Savage, thank you for explaining that. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. So thank you, everyone.
Anybody else? Ms. Jordan?
Thank you. I have a couple questions. There was a lot in here, so thank you very much for this. But I guess my one biggest thing is, so right now we have 31 vacancies. The school year is ending. So now when we start school again, we are not looking at, hopefully we're only still looking at that 31, because we have no idea what that's going to look like for us. I know we're looking at 0 vacancies, and we're going to start the school year with everyone in there. But then also you have on the investment in student behavior support, and that was to give them more support in counseling and mental health services. How does that happen when we don't have enough people to do that as well? So, and I know this is on teachers, but are we also really pushing that to make sure that we have our psychologists, our mental health experts and all of those people put into these positions as well. So that way, when we start the schools, we are ready for it to take place.
I actually would love to just kind of respond to that. So first off, thank you. Great question. Really good points on this. So just as anything else, right? We talked about teacher vacancies. We talked about leadership and the role that has. Every single aspect of our school district operation is designed to support the teaching and learning process, either directly or indirectly. Among those services, all the things you mentioned, all the mental health supports, the behavioral supports, all school bus driver. If we don't have sufficient drivers, we can't get the kids to school. If we don't have cafeteria, we can't feed them properly. So there are no small roles in this district. If we don't have custodians, then we won't have a clean, safe learning environment for our students, right? So there are no small parts. And so that's part of the challenge that this board always has to face, is that, on our superintendent, we have to find a way to optimize those services and fund all of those various competing needs. And so I want to highlight a couple of things that were mentioned in that presentation, I think really address that piece. One thing is looking at the challenges by thinking differently. So one of the things I got to talk to recently, some federal government employees who really, they help support federal agencies with this type of work. One of the things they told me right out of the gate was, if there's one big strategy we could highlight for you, Dr. Savage, it's remember about virtual opportunities. When you can open your talent pool to the entire country, even in some cases the entire world, you open yourself up to substantial increase of talent into your local workforce. It doesn't then restrict your ability to only hire for those boots on the ground, because some of our jobs, like our teachers and folks to supervise our kids, if they physically have to be present, there's really no way to make that virtual, but there are so many other services. So you heard some of those services, those specialized professional services, where you have different areas in our country that right now, they aren't growing like we are. So you have educational systems, not just in Florida, but really all around our country, that actually are having to fire people. They're having to let go of staff because their schools are closing. They're having to consolidate schools. That opens up people who maybe don't want to relocate to our area, but are specialized folks, whether they're school counselors, whether there's speech language pathologists. So part of what I heard in the presentation I really wanted to highlight for everyone is, this opportunity to think differently of the way we even set up our staffing model. So instead of saying this school gets 3 SLPs, that school gets 1 SLP, that school gets 2 SLPs. Instead, if we look at it from a workload management standpoint, actually you might have an SLP that goes to multiple sites to support those students and those specialists. Or you might have a virtual. Again, they're entertaining, they're looking at these ideas. And that's what I'll credit just thinking differently. We have to provide those services. It doesn't always look the same from place to place. And I think that's what I applaud the team and our regionals as well, to highlight from best practices you're finding all around the country, to find out how are people providing exceptional student education services and some of the many specialized services that we've talked about today in the most effective and efficient way possible. So again, I want to credit and highlight the question. Thank you for raising that important point, but I also want to highlight the work of the team to illuminate some of those answers for the board members.
Thank you. And then I wanted to say, I really appreciate the daycares, because when I'm out there and I'm speaking to teachers, and they said if I could only take my child there, and I saw the principal came in, Debbie's out there from G. Weaver, but I think that is really, and just watching that and knowing that I can drop my child here and go right here. Because Chico's did that a long time ago, because they want to make sure that their people are there working. And I think that is definitely a plus. So thank you for doing that. And I wish we could do that all throughout the district so that we could give that to them. And then the survey, how many people are we getting on that survey? Oh, I'm so sorry. I
believe it's starting next week. So
okay.
It's getting ready to be disseminated.
Okay. And then I think I had one more survey, increased counseling. And then, my last question was priority marketing. Reached out to people who had bachelor degrees. Mm-hmm. How did that happen? I mean, how did they?
It was through social media, radio ads, things like that. Basically, the message was, if you have a bachelor's degree, and you were interested, loved kids, please reach out to us. And it sent them to a specific website that was routed directly to our talent acquisition team, and then they individually reached out to those people.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Parsons?
I do have one concern. When we have these vacancies in the core, or just teachers generally, from what I've seen is some schools have many more vacancies than other schools. And I think we need to come up with some kind of a plan that is more equal, whether we have to move teachers, you know, if school is 100%, maybe they have to lose one teacher to go there. Even if it's on a rotating basis or something, we need to do that because it's not fair to any particular zone or any particular school to have multiple openings. And I don't know how the principal even deals with that too. Dr. Savage.
Yes, I just, because we're in bargaining, I really can't get too deep into it, but, when we were preparing our management approach, we certainly looked at the way the vacancies are deployed across the system, and we really tried to think about it from a student perspective of if a student has to go to a classroom and they have no teacher. We know, unfortunately, what that data says for those students, and it's not a good one. And so when you have particular schools that we're noticing that are geographically located, that have a higher incidence of those vacancies, and that there are particular subject areas where we have higher incidence of those vacancies, we as the management side tried to be very responsive in addressing that piece so that we don't find all of our vacancies continuing to show up in very high proportions in particular schools and in particular teaching assignments. So that's certainly one way we're attempting, among many others, to address that issue.
Ms. Giovanelli?
First of all, thank you for this. And I applaud your work and the work that's ahead of you. So, but something that Dr. Savage just said that I think it's really important is you said, look for talent virtually, basically. But my question is, how do we compete competitively salary-wise? Because we can't even, we're not even competing with our local districts. So now you're telling me now we're going to compete nationally, maybe even larger than that, because you have people that are all over the world that could teach our children if you want to look at it at that perspective. But I think we need to focus on how to pay people now and pay people competitively against our own district for us to be able to even hire and retain something nationally. Like that's alarming because I don't think that we're in a place to do that. That's my concern. Second of all, I do love the child care opportunity at G. Weaver Hips. It's a great program, and I got to see that, the groundbreaking of that and everything, and that was awesome, and I'm excited to see it go in more schools. So I just want to thank you for that initiative because I didn't know where that came from, but it's excellent. And it was a joke that when I would take my child to daycare, that was my new car because that's how much childcare costs was, and now it's even more expensive than that. So that was always a joke that my new car was getting dropped off at Bobby Noonan. So I just think that that's a great opportunity for our teachers, and I'd like to see that really advertised and focused because I think you'll have way more participation and it is definitely a retention piece that is key. And I'll throw that back into you, the money. I know you can't really talk about that, but I think that focusing on the hard-earned dollars that the teachers earn every day and the staff earns is really, it could be huge. Thank you.
Yeah, again, I have to be very cautious in what I say, only because we are in bargaining, so I want to be very clear that we're not doing any type of bargaining outside of it, but it's really more just to address the point in terms of raising awareness of the complexity of that piece. So, one of the big strides that Florida has done as a state is they made really a major work to try to raise the starting teacher salary in our state comparative to other states in the country. And because they made that effort in such a huge focal point, that has raised Florida's competitiveness, whereas in the past we were far less competitive. We are now far more competitive at the beginning teacher salary level. That said, we aren't as competitive nationally in terms of the average teacher salary level. But let's stay with where Florida has an advantage, right? We have moved up in those rankings on the starting teacher salary. So again, as I mentioned, if a teacher is starting in other parts of the country, and let's say there are fewer jobs, for example, there are some states in the Midwest, there are teaching areas in certain districts, which are many smaller than ours, where no teacher coming out of a college of education can even get a job. They have to substitute for multiple years in order to get a permanent teaching job. And you have the ability to potentially work virtually in some capacity, whether that's some piece. All of a sudden, we're an opportunity for something like that if we have that. So yeah, there's no doubt you want to continue to be as competitive, and obviously that's a bargaining effort. That's the work. That's a lot of opportunity there. But I did want to mention that. And again, it wasn't just instructional. The opportunity, the folks who I spoke to, they said really it's about creating a better value proposition for your employees of any type of employment that it makes sense that could work virtually, that you should be looking at that as an option because it just opens your talent pipeline. Something we didn't talk about, though, with the team that we are also looking about is also about our student pipeline. We recognize that students in our own systems, in our own community that want to matriculate and go to college and get those degrees, they become an opportunity as well. So we didn't mention it today, but our teaching academies looking at expanding those things because, quite frankly, a lot of our students are about to graduate. They're about to walk across a graduation, and some of them aren't going right to college. Maybe they'd be willing to substitute in our classroom. So again, that's the opportunity to get more of our local workforce here that just happen to be graduates to look, and maybe they want to become paraprofessionals. Maybe they want to become guest teachers and get into our pipeline of the adult pipeline. But we want to do more on the student pipeline as well. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that too. And thank you for the questions, Ms. Giovanelli.
Mr. Ribble, and then I'll give my comments.
Okay, I hate to belabor this thing, but turnover really drives everything here in the district. I mean, we can't get this fixed. We're going to be in trouble down the line. But I did want to mention something that happened in my lifetime that I learned, and it's a slogan from a consultant: what gets measured gets results. What gets measured gets results. And at my previous employment, we had a real problem with workman's compensation. This went on for year after year after year. Finally, we got a new CEO that says, we need to stop these on-job injuries. And we came up with a program called Project Zero. I don't care if we talk about auto accidents, workman's comp, turnover, sales, or whatever you want to do. What gets measured gets results. And the program we put in place, every time there was someone injured, we had a conference call at 1 o'clock, and it was driven bottom up. It started amongst the division managers, went to the next level, all the way up to the CEO by 4 o'clock in the afternoon on who got injured, how did the injury happen, and what are we going to do so it doesn't happen again. And when you come up with that kind of accountability, so today I show up and I'm a principal, and I have one of my employees, one of my teachers leave. So now I got to call in to Miss Neely or whoever the case may be and say, hey, listen, we have Melissa resign this morning. This is what I think happened. She says she's got to move to be with her sister, but that's not really what happened. And we get to the root cause of that person leaving the organization. When you have that kind of accountability, watch what's going to happen to your numbers. What gets measured gets results. So take a look at it. It might work.
All right. This is what happens when you go last. Everything's already been talked about. But since I was a teacher, I'll give you my mindset going through this. So this almost could have been broken up into 2 workshops. It was packed full of information and all good things. So I agree with Mr. Ribble's first comment about I think 1% is setting the bar too low, and I knew that you felt that way also, because you are all former educators and still are in the classroom, but 1% probably won't move the needle much. However, I'm confident that you're going to supersede that goal. Dr. Johnson, you said at the very beginning, you used the word custom, walking our employees, like giving them that, like a customized experience. That you need, I think you need to hold on to that term, especially our new teachers, giving them that customized, almost hand-holding experience so that when they go to call their friends that are graduating from FGCU the following year, they can say, this is the easiest district to start fresh off. They are so incredibly supportive of you right out of the gate. And I think when you hold on to that piece, that's going to be really changing, especially those newer people to our district. We want the gossip to be, this is the easiest transition to get into this school system, right? I am looking at slide 15, and while I think all of these initiatives are awesome, I go back to reasons I became an educator. I knew I was never going to be a millionaire when I went into teaching, but I chose that degree anyway because I loved kids. I wanted to make an impact. Those were my motivators, and I wanted to have like a family life balance eventually. So when you go and you look at these things that you're doing, like for example, on this slide, to me, one of the most important things is addressing workload, stress, work-life balance. And I always tell everyone, you know, family first, whatever that looks like to you. But those boundaries have been crossed over the years, and we have asked staff to do things that are outside of their job scope, and it's not okay. And I know that we all agree here, so I just need to put that out there. I was able to go and tour Little Waves at Fort Myers High School. And I'm telling you right now, if you're having a bad day, staff, you need to pop into one of these, I told Mr. Englehart that if I was having a bad day, I'd head right down to Little Waves. They'd cheer me right up. But to see those places throughout the district, I think would be life-changing for our teachers. And that brings me back to one of the reasons I wanted to teach. I wanted to be able to have the freedom to be a mom and to impact kids on a daily basis. So I would love to see that being pursued throughout the district. Such a great thing that's happening at G. Weaver, and hopefully we can continue that across the board. As far as, and then I have one last thing, it was about rewards and recognitions. Everyone wants to have recognition for what they're doing. Even if it's a principal that puts a Post-it note in someone's mailbox and says, hey, I see what you're doing. Thank you so much. You know, it's all the way from little things like that to these recognitions we have up here on the dais. Everything in between, little tiny things count. I know that we have these signing days for our athletes. I'm like, let's have signing days for teachers that, you know, like let's bring in the news at their own school in their own community, having a signing day, getting to go from one step to the next, whether it be going from a teacher to something else, like an IB coordinator. I mean, that's a big deal to me, these steps. And, you know, I always say, and Dr. Savage, I've said it in our one-on-ones previously, don't underestimate the person that has a bachelor's and not a master's. There's a lot of talent there. I do appreciate those people who go above and beyond with their education, but just don't let it fall short there for those people. And then I say to my athletes, today you guys were good, but I'm going to push you to be great tomorrow. And I think that that's what we just can't settle for good. So that's all I have. Ms. Giovanelli, would you like to add something?
Yeah, you reminded me of how we're coming, I think it's this Friday, we're going to the letters.
Read the letters from the seniors.
Yes, that's when to your point.
Yeah.
I forget what we call that. But
Yeah, the letters that, so just for the public, this Friday is one of the days that seniors are writing letters to teachers who made an impact on them anytime in their educational career here in Lee County. So it won't be just high school teachers, elementary school teachers will receive letters, things like that. And I, as a former teacher, when a kid comes up to me and says, "Oh my gosh, Miss Fleming, you were the best." I mean, they could have given me $1 million and it would have felt the same way. So I love seeing these programs. So I believe that is all. Thank you so much for this, and I look forward to hearing an update. I'm sure the board does as well. Thank you. We're going to completely shift gears here to budget overview to Dr. Amy Desamore and Kelly Lecter. They'll be presenting this afternoon.
Madam Chair, while they're walking up, because obviously we do great things, we have to be able to fund those things, and so you're going to hear a little bit more about, I think, our capital as well today. But just to answer the board question about the initiative on Friday, it's called Project Appreciation.
All right. Good afternoon, Dr. Savage and members of the board. Kelly and I are here today to give some additional budget information related to all the work that we've been doing thus far and all the things that we have yet to go. You did get a little information a little bit earlier today in the briefing related to the legislative process. We'll just add a little bit more and let you know kind of individually here at this inside of the budget department, business services, and across our district, what's been happening and what we will continue to do. So I'll turn it over to Mrs. Letcher, who will take us through the overview.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with a little update. The last time we met, we talked about the FTE projections, and at that time, our FTE for next year was projected at 111,917 unweighted FTE, which was a growth of 3,374. Since that time, the enrollment conference held their meeting on April 11th, and statewide, they were seeing some drop-offs in the ESOL population, so they made some adjustments to Lee County as well and brought our FTE down to 111,725 with a projected growth of 3,182. And while that's a reduction of 192 FTE, they actually reduced our ESOL population by about 670 in total, which and only have us growing like 200 in the ESOL area. This year we grew 2,400, even with the declines that were going on. So I don't think that's realistic, and I had a conversation with them about that, but they made their decision, so we're going to move forward with their decision. I did want to update you on some legislative stuff. I know, as you now know, the budget has not been finalized, so they are going into special session. But I did want to go over the comparisons of the budgets that we have seen from them, just to give you an idea of what they look like for Lee County. What I've done here, when the Senate gave us theirs, they left FES out of it, right? So family empowerment scholarships were not part of their total numbers. So I did the House and the third calculation for Lee County the same way, so that we're looking at apples to apples. So in that, the base student allocation, the House increased theirs by $50.51, while the Senate was increasing theirs by $66.77. When you take the dollars, the weighted FTE times the BSA times the CFW, or comparable wage factor, that for the House would generate $602.5 million. For the Senate, it was $604.4 million. It is a decline for us in the House by $696,247, and the Senate, it's an increase of 1.1. So you're probably asking, like, how does that happen when you're seeing an increase in the BSA? That's because the comparable wage factor declined. If we took the comparable wage factor that they're going to apply to us for next year and you applied it this year, we would have lost over $900,000. So part of that has to do with the comparable wage factor. The other part has to do with a change that they've made in the weighted FTE, the add-on FTE, which I'll get to in a little bit. But when they made that change, that decreased our weighted FTE amount, which made that decrease happen. When you look at the educational enrichment portion, the House is proposing an increase to about $40.7 million, so a $1.1 million increase for Lee County, while the Senate is proposing a decrease of 36.9, or about 37. It was about $2.6 million decrease in educational enrichment. When you look at the ESE guarantee, again, the House was looking at a $1.6 million increase, while the Senate's looking at about a $5.6 million decrease. Overall, when you put all of the pieces together, the House budget was an increase of about $10.7 million for Lee County, while the Senate's was only about a $1.6 million. When you look at the dollars per unweighted FTE, it's a $13.25 increase on the House and a $76.31 decrease in the Senate proposal. So big differences between the two, two pieces of it. So I want to talk about that add-on FTE. So the add-on FTE is funds that we receive for students who pass some advanced tests, who receive advanced diplomas, who are enrolled in the dual enrollment programs, and our early graduations. So when the House reduced the add-on FTE, they reduced it all programs across the board by half. That's costing Lee County about $7.7 million. When you look at the Senate, they reduced all of the programs with the exception of industry certification, or as you may know it as CAPE. That one they left at 100%, so the loss for the Senate one is about $6.3 million to Lee County. So that's what happens with Lee counties and what happens with family empowerment in Lee County. So the House is proposing an $18.6 million increase for family empowerment scholarships, and their cost per student increased $10.52. For the Senate, they're proposing a $19.3 million increase in the amount for FES, and that's just for Lee County's FES program. And they're proposing an increase of $85.46 per student, per unweighted FTE. So you can see a big difference between what Lee County is looking at and what the Family Empowerment Scholarship Program is looking at. Some other things that have changed as we're going through here. Sorry, lost my place for a second. The Senate Bill 7022 is proposing an increase in the FRS, Florida Retirement System, and they're looking at taking it from 13.63 to 14.03, which is a $2.4 million increase in our expenses for next year just with our current staffing. So as staffing goes up, that will also increase. So as you can see from that, if we go with the Senate, who is proposing only a $1.6 million increase, we're not even covering our FRS increase that we're going to have come hit us next year. Now, some other things that are going on is the House Bill 301 and Senate Bill 1570 is increasing the amount that agencies are liable for sovereign immunity. It's there was a cap of 200,000 for like a single claim or single event, and now that's going to go up to $1 million proposed to go up to $1 million effective October 1st, and then it goes up again the following October. They are proposing a study on the elimination of property taxes, so the Office of Economic and Demographic Research needs to conduct a study by October 1st. Senate Bill 2510, this one is helping us in some areas. So currently, Florida Virtual School is the only virtual program who can report and earn FTE over the summer. This bill will allow school districts' virtual programs to do the same thing. So that will provide some extra funding for our students that continue the virtual programs over the summer. It is removing the middle school CAPE digital tool certifications from the CAPE funding list, so our middle schools will no longer be eligible for that CAPE certification in the digital tool. It is changing the school recognition incentives so that if a school receives that school recognition funds, the incentives can only be used for instructional personnel. It's no longer proposing that it won't be able to be used for all personnel at the school. And then it's also changing the distribution of funds to school districts. Currently, they pay us twice a month, and this is changing that to only once a month to pay the school districts. Some other areas that are in there in Senate Bill 166 are some administrative efficiencies, some good things in this bill to help us as well, take some workload off of people. It no longer requires that school boards employ an internal auditor, so that is an area where some cost savings could happen in school districts. It changes some requirements for reporting of financial information to parents. Currently, it says that we have to report to all of the parents the per student expenditures for their schools, and this changes it to the Department of Education has to do that, and we just have to provide a link to the website. Currently, we have to update every 12 weeks our school capacities, where there's capacity at our schools on our websites, and this is changing that to only twice annually. It removes the requirement for districts to submit a plan when we have schools that are out of class size compliance. It removes certain formats for information on the budget that are to be provided. So currently the law provides that we have to do some graphical representations and things like that, and that takes all of that out of the statute. It removes the requirement for CAPE bonuses that the teachers must be employed in the year in which the funds are included in the calculation. The CAPE bonuses were the only one that if you were a teacher and you earned it last year and then you retired this year, you were not eligible to receive that. Every other of those programs could, and they've now changed that to be, so the CAPE aligns with the other programs, and the teachers are still eligible to receive the bonuses that they earned from the students in the previous year. It changed the requirement and timing that districts have to submit their tentative facilities plan. In the past, we had the 20-year plan that had to be submitted. It was by October 1st. We never, the state didn't have the plan done in time for us to get it completed in that time. It was a lot of extra work. And now they're just saying that our tentative budget approval of the tentative capital plan is sufficient for the 5-year plan, and then we just need to submit it to them after that. It removes the requirement of the per student station cost for construction, and then it requires OPAGA to review that per student station levels by September 1st. So those are some things that are in the legislative thing that affect the budget. And so I just wanted to kind of go over those different pieces with you. The next thing I want to do is talk about our capital revenue, since we know we don't have the cost per student station anymore, but we still have some estimates that we have to do, some buildings we have to build. So I wanted to talk to you about our estimates for next year and what we're looking at. So I'm going to start with the capital outlay millage. Those are the 1.5 mills that you all levy for capital outlay funding. We are looking at a slowdown. As you can see in this in the bottom is the anticipated tax roll growth that we had from the state moving, year to year to year. Above that is the percent over the previous year that we've actually collected. So as you can see, all except for in 24, we were under the anticipated collection amount. And in 24, we were higher, but I think that had to do with the hurricane and the people paying their taxes in the following year for the hurricane as well. But this year we are looking at like we're going to be well below where we should be by the end of this year. So because we are not seeing the collections at the rates that we had anticipated, we're taking an approach of next year we're only going to increase that amount by 3% for the next 2 years and then 4% for the 3 years after that. And we'll keep watching that, and if things change, we'll be making adjustments as we go. The next one is the impact fees. We have, over the last couple of years, under-collected on our projections for impact fees. We've seen a slowing in that. So based on that, we are looking at going to zero for next year, 0% increase. So we're looking at budgeting that at 30 million, hoping that we can stay right there. And then doing slight increases after that of 1.5% and then 2% for the last 3 years of the 5-year plan. We are currently collecting at 55% of the rate impact fees right now. And then sales tax. Sales tax has actually been going down. Our collections for that, you remember when we first got the sales tax, it was blowing all of our projections out of the water, but we're going the opposite way right now. So our collections right now, we're projecting that in this year alone, we're going to be under our projection by about 6%. So next year, we're going to stand at a 0% increase at 117.6 million, just because we don't know what's going on with everything right now. So we're going to stand with the 0%. We're looking at 1% in 27, and then 2% in 28 and 29. And the 29 number is smaller because that's the year that we only collect a half a year. That will be the last year of our sales tax. In our current 5-year capital plan, the schools that we have slotted that we are going to be building in the East Zone, we have 3 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, a K-8, 2 middle schools, a high school, and then we have some preliminary work for another high school. And I apologize, on your initial slideshow, that showed as high 0 or 000, and that was my mistake. It's QQQ. And I apologize for that. In the South Zone, we're doing a Cypress Lake Middle rebuild and Bonita Elementary remodel. And in the West Zone, we're continuing and finalizing our Bayshore addition, the Hector Caffaretta K-8 rebuild, and the Cape Coral Tech addition. So we are going to need to go out for debt to cover these costs. And so in the current year, we're going out for a refunding of our current 2014 A and B COPS issue. We're also going to get the same issue for Cypress Lake Middle rebuild, Hector Caffaretta, and High School NNN. And then next year, we're looking at another certificates of participation for elementary L, middle OO, and our K-8. And then in 27, we're looking at it for elementary M. I again apologize. I had repeated middle school OO and the K-8 on there before, and I've corrected that, and I apologize for that as well. And then our certificates of participation in 28 will be for elementary N. So what's going on next with the budget? Well, of course, the legislative session is not going to end. We're going to special session. We are hoping to see a first calculation sometime in May. I'm not sure, after the discussions I heard this morning, I'm really going to see that, but fingers still crossed that I will see it in May. In June, we will provide a preliminary budget to you based on whatever information that we have. And we will reviewing enrollments for schools throughout the summer. And that's something I always keep telling you. We're going to keep watching those enrollments and making sure schools have the resources they need. In July, we're hoping to receive the second calculation after the final millage amounts are settled on. And then we will be advertising the tentative budget based on trim or truth in millage requirements. We'll be providing a budget to you and to the public for the tentative budget hearing. And again, keep watching those enrollments. And then in August, we welcome our students back to our schools. We'll be doing adjustments on the 10th day after those students come into school based on the actual kids that are showing up in our schools. And we'll be finalizing our budget during the month of August, and in September, we will be bringing the final budget to you at a final public hearing. And then we'll be, of course, providing the Department of Revenue and the Department of Education with all of the required documentation. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Yes, sure. Just some additional information. As you have heard, The legislative process is still ongoing. Regardless of when that ends, we still are obligated to present to you as a board a balanced budget for next year, tentatively in July and then finally in September. And so we are just giving you updates on where we are in that process, including preliminary information we have to build our new capital plan for the year. The budget is a living, breathing document, so it will be updated as we go along, but the information that we have, we are trying to put it together, still moving forward with our process, and ultimately to end up with a final budget for you to approve in September. And so with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Savage and board members for any questions and/or comments.
Well, I will just keep it very short. I know you all have had a chance to get briefed every month by our folks in our business services division, and I just have to credit this leadership. These folks definitely know, they understand the dollars and cents, but I think one of the things that often goes unknown about them is they care so deeply about our students and all of our staff people that every decision they make, and some participate in bargaining, they do the work, they really deeply review because they understand the impact that every dollar has in this organization. So whenever they're bringing this information, they're very clear to highlight good news or bad news. They're willing to do it because they really deeply care about our people. And I think it's one of my favorite qualities about those individuals. So I just wanted to highlight that as well. Thank you for what you do in putting this information together. It looks like dollars, but this actually impacts kids and people. And so I really appreciate that as well.
Any comments? Mr. Ribble?
Yeah, I don't really have a comment. Well, a comment. Great presentation. Of course, we're all a little nervous on what's going to be happening in Tallahassee. That's the unknown at this point. But one thing I'm not too clear on slide 8, you have in there impact fees are currently at 55% collection rate. Can you expand on that? How's that work? And do we have a shortfall there? Or?
So at the 55% rate is there's a rate which when they do some testing, they say that the school district should be getting from impact fees. The county then makes the determination how much we will actually get. The rate that we receive is 55% of what the survey has shown that we really should be receiving from impact fees. So our collection rate is 55% of what we should be receiving. And it's going to be set like that for a while.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fisher?
Thank you for the presentation. It's really good. I have a question through the chair to the deputy superintendent. I think some of these, if I recall, some of the legislative proposals I don't think are currently, I think they may have died. If we may have government relations follow up with this week on this.
Yes, I'll be happy to have our GR staff, they track every single one of the bills and so forth, provide an update.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Parsons?
Like everybody else, that's a great presentation. I know student enrollment's just really a hard number to come up with exactly right now. So the more y'all can keep us up to date on that, rather than wait till like the next month or something like that. I mean, I would really love to see figures as often as y'all compute them. Okay. Gives us a good idea of what's actually going on out there in student enrollment. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next is going to be an overview of our construction change order report, March 2025. Scott Rickenbacker and Melissa Rivera will be presenting this afternoon.
Madam Chair, while they're making their way up, would it be fair to the board if I asked our student enrollment tracking to put something in the board weekly, every week, so you have just kind of an update on our current enrollment, so forth? Okay, great.
Thank you, Dr. Savage.
My pleasure.
Good afternoon, board members. Dr. Savage, Esquire de Bay Bruno, Scott Rickenbacker, Director of Construction. I'm here with Melissa Rivera, my coordinator and the brains behind the organization. Today we have a double report for you. It is the change order report for March of 2025 required by statute. On the front cover sheet, you'll notice that we executed in direct material purchases $957,066.68 in change orders. with a return of tax savings to the district of $54,338.68. Non-direct contract change orders, we executed $51,703.18. The amount returned of $51,703.18 was project savings in return for unused funds. Contingency adjustments, we had $469,962.90 in contingency adjustments, and no return of contingencies in this reporting. The secondary sheet, you'll notice, is the backup information for the cover sheet. We had 2 DMP change orders, Edgewood Academy HVAC, Spring Creek Elementary School HVAC. We had 4 contract change orders for Riverdale High School, Gateway Elementary traffic improvements, Veterans Park Academy of the Arts, and Riverdale High School again. And we had 1 construction contingency adjustment for Riverdale High School. Are there any questions?
Any questions, board members? Ms. Jordan?
When is Riverdale going to be finished? And,
Well,
and not ever come back?
It's on the slide, we'll get there, but it's,
Okay.
it's next August.
This August.
Pardon me?
Isn't it this August?
Yeah, it's August.
Mr. Riggenbacher, why don't you go ahead to the construction bi-monthly update?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ready? First up, Bayshore K-8 expansion. I won't go through every slide. Your time is valuable. The information, I'll give you the latest information from when it was reported. Currently, Bayshore, we're expecting 100% design drawings to be completed and issued to the district on June 9th. The total project cost, we're estimating to bring it to the board for that project in September 9th of this year, 2025. Any questions on that slide? We're good? Okay. Next up is Pre-K 8 BBB, formerly known as the Innovation School. Currently on schedule. We are at 90% drawings will be delivered to the district, and we'll have a little bit better understanding as to where the dollars are going on that project around June 13th of this year. No board action required at this time. Any questions? Benita Springs Elementary School rebuild project. Currently, we started a portion of the phase 1 demo. We took some trees down out there. We are getting ready to do the demolition approximately around June 8th of this year. Right now, we are awaiting on the development order, collaboration between the district and the city of Benita Springs. A special assemblage plan is part of the DO, and we're working through that, our staff and their staff, and we're hoping to get that thing kicked off and crunch and munch starting June 8th, plus or minus. Any questions? Next, Cape Coral Technical College, the expansion. We're currently on board. Notice the proceed have been issued. The contractor has mobilized. The site surveying is going on. We've demoed the old Hector Caffaretta building, so we're on schedule and that's moving forward. No action required at this time. Any questions on that one? Okay. Cypress Lake Middle School. Obviously, demolition is nearing completion on that campus. We've been out there for a better part of 2 months. School seems to be going well. We've got no complaints from staff at this point. I got to find some wood. And that project is on schedule as well. I don't know if any of you had a chance to go out to Cypress Lake, but just real quick, we're just completing the ROTC tower out there. It's pretty amazing. There'll be another one at Estero and another one at Riverdale High School. So if you get a chance, take a look at it. It's pretty massive. So, any questions? Hector Caffaretta Jr. K-8 rebuild. We're on schedule. We've been out there. About 90% of all of the footings have been placed. Anchor bolts being set. There's a groundbreaking. I think you guys are all aware. It'll be next Tuesday, the 13th. So hope to see you there. We're on schedule. We're moving forward, and no issues on that particular project. Any questions? Elementary School L. Right now, we have just received 100% drawings on April 21st. The architect and the CM's numbers from the 90% are still holding. Now, understand that L and OO the drawings are on the shelf. We're not putting it out to bid until the Army Corps releases us with our permitting in there. So we're still standing at about architect 74 million, CM at about 68 million. for that school in today's dollars. So that can change depending on when the Army Corps releases. Any questions? Elementary School M, East Zone. Right now, the architect, we're at 90% drawings, and the estimate is $70,958,109 currently. And the CM, we're expecting their estimate, usually about 2 weeks later, around May 21st. So we'll be able to show you how those two compare in our next discussion. Any questions? High School NNN, good news. We're putting it forward 2 years. So we've revised the opening date because we got our Army Corps no notice required, and we're moving forward with our water management. So we're going to get this thing kicked off and have it open for you in June of 2027, which helps the program across the board because we won't be opening 3 or 4 schools in 1 year in 28 with the teachers and so forth. And it also is going to help with the massive amount of high school students in that zone. Any questions? Middle School OO, that's the sister middle school on the site with L. 100% drawings. The prices have not changed in terms of the value of that project since the 90% reporting above. And again, that's on the shelf with Army Corps, and when we get those permits, we'll be working towards getting that moving forward as well. Any questions? Riverdale High School, on schedule. Right now, August 31st of 2025. August, this one. Any questions? Okay. VPAA renovation, Black Box Theater, Lemuel Teal, currently on schedule. The entire program for all of those buildings is to be substantially complete by November 10th of 2025. Currently ordering furniture and everything through the Lemuel Teal administration to outfit the theater and so forth, but so far the compliments have been coming in left and right about that space.
And that's exactly what my comment would be. I was able to tour the black box, and wow. I mean, it's a good thing they're going to be done before Christmas, because I think every community member is going to ask, can we borrow this to do a play? So I hope they're ready.
I'll be there.
But it's awesome. It's great, yeah.
Let's see, and I don't know if you had seen, we use the same product we used on the LEPAC building here to refinish and waterproof the outside of that school, and I've gotten some pretty real positive responses. The place looks great, so hopefully. And last but not least, the construction services report. And I'm sorry, I'm old, so I need to break it up big into an 11 by 17, but I'll read you the numbers of what we have. We have 48 projects currently, 27 are on schedule. 5 are ahead of schedule, 1 is behind schedule, 2 are on hold, 2 are in closeout, and 7 are in auditing. And did you all have any questions on the monthly update? No?
Yeah, I just have one question. I keep hearing about the black box. I was out at that location, but we couldn't get a tour that night. We were doing a town hall meeting. We're going to put theater seating in there? Is that the deal?
There's classrooms in there for the arts programs, but it's typically a performance center, but they'll have their music in there and their drama courses and those things that you would have in an art school.
What's the capacity of that?
I can get you that information. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Thank you always. The North Myers Academy, I have to advocate for this because I know it's a traffic study, but with this, this was a real safety issue with those children having to walk in that area and around, all the way around to the school. So are we moving forward with this conversation still? Do you know?
I haven't really had a chance to get with the superintendent and her staff to discuss that. There were no traffic improvements that the district could do on our particular site ourselves. It's not an ingress and stacking going into the school site, which is typically where we have the problem. It's actually an intersection up the road where we'll have to go to the county and ask if they'd be willing to participate. They would have to take some of their right-of-way easement area and create a right turn lane, possibly put a traffic signal at that intersection road right by the VFW hall there. So we do meet with the county, their traffic division, every month, and we are having those conversations whether or not they will move forward with it, if it's in their capital budget or their planning. we can find out and get back to you on that.
I appreciate it because it says closed, and I know that when this was brought up, it was not about the traffic study. It wasn't about, we know there's like 679 vehicles that come in and out of there, and they do that stacking within the school property, but it's the passage through, going across that little creek or whatever they want to call that. That's what we were trying to do there.
We looked at the pedestrian bridge. Right now, we put cameras out there. There were no students walking in that general area. Now, that could be because those people that live in that area drive their children and sit in the line and drop them off for class. That's a Lamsid wide spreader canal. So in that particular one, to build a pedestrian bridge over that canal to put a back access, it can be done. Our estimates are probably somewhere around $4 million. There would probably be Army Corps permitting, and definitely, it's not South Florida Water Management, I believe it's a Lamsid Canal. There would be permitting required for that as well. But right now, the reason it says closed is we've done everything we can do with a traffic study. We will constantly advocate to try and get the county to pay and perform that right turn lane at that intersection for the egress. But in terms of a pedestrian bridge, I would need further direction from upper management.
Yeah, and if I may, through the chair to Dr. Savage, when we first spoke about this, and I know David, Mr. Newland was part of this, it was about the safety of the kids. It had nothing to do with driving or cars coming down the road. Because I know I even met with Commissioner Hammond regarding this as well, and he had his DOT or his gentleman was there as well when we had the conversation with a little drawing that we drew ourselves, because of the fact that there are kids, and I did go there and walk that because of the fact that, we had removed the buses from that area, so when the kids were walking, and the concern of them were that they have to go all the way around Laurel and come back in, so that's like a whole nother, probably a good mile that they have to walk around that area, and the safety of the children walking. And I go there and I see that, I count those kids like every day. There's like 75 kids that walk out of that school and walk all the way around, so I know they exist because I count them, so I know they're literally there.
It was a dual traffic study. We looked at the pedestrian traffic all the way around the corner, all the way around the canal, in conjunction with the traffic study as well. So it was a dual traffic study. It wasn't just our standard stacking inside of a site. And from what we saw, the numbers were about 40 and 60, but 70 is close enough. And it just didn't warrant. There are sidewalks out there for them to get around. As you get around the back side of that site, on the other side of the Lamsid Canal, the conversations of kids walking through the canals when it's in low water mode and some gravel, the fences had 4 feet of grass and the locks are rusted, you couldn't even open it. So it hasn't been opened in a long, long time. So I don't think there's any transitioning across the waterway there. But again, that doesn't mean I'm saying there aren't children living in the homes in that back area. If there are, then most likely their parents, for the bulk of them, are driving them and dropping them off. And there might be maybe 40 kids that are walking.
Yeah, that's not happening, but I appreciate what because I literally witness and I go there and I count almost daily.
Right.
So I just thank you. And I'm just very concerned about the kids and their walking through that area. And when they give you a sheet of paper that shows you what they're walking through, and I get that we are responsible for them when they get to school, but I want to make sure they get to the schools.
Okay, Dr. Savage, if I may.
So thank you, though. I appreciate it.
My department would be happy to bring in the traffic engineer and the civil engineer and meet with the board members if they'd like to know more or how to better maybe possibly understand or see what the survey, the analysis, we're more than willing to do that with you folks.
Yeah, if I may, what we'll do is we'll take it offline. We'll get with you. We'll get with Dave. We'll get with the regional who's over that particular area, and we'll just have a kind of debrief on the findings of the study. I'll take additional information. We'll try to have the best plan that we can to support our students and so forth. So I appreciate the conversation.
Cool.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Next is our policy review briefing, first reading. Kathy Dupé-Bruno and Bereni Brafi will be presenting this afternoon.
afternoon, Madam Chair, board members. You have had an opportunity to review the policies. We've gone through it in our one-on-ones. Are there any questions or concerns about the policies?
Board members, any questions or concerns about the policies for the first reading? Mr. Fisher.
Thank you. Can you, on policy 9701, Attorney Bruno, can you talk about the interface between that and student NIL?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Fisher. We currently have a name, image, and likeness policy is 2431.06. This policy 9701 is specifically with regards to trademark licensing and protection for the school board. There's not really an interplay between those two policies. The NIL is specifically for students and whoever their vendor or whoever they're contracting with, but this will allow some additional protections for our logos and other things that we want to have intellectually protected through copyright trademark law.
Thank you.
I'd like to piggyback off that. Would you mind going a little further into, because I get a lot of questions from the public whose students go to private school. Could you address the fact that these are our policies, but the private schools in our county may have different policies? Do you mind just talking about that just for a moment?
Absolutely. These policies really apply to the school board. This is our way to govern and to advise the administration as to the board's expectations. So they are not equivalent to anything that any private school, and to be quite honest, even charter schools may have their own governance documents as well.
Any other questions?
I got one.
Ms. Chaviano?
For policy 5460 for the graduation requirements, on page 6, I know we made adjustments for accords and other regalia earned through academic achievements or participation in school-approved organizations in accordance with district guidelines. Specifically for district guidelines, I know a couple of emails come through since graduation is coming up. And academics is great, but when it comes to sports and the other things that our children are participating in, even with the military, we just did a whole event last week. In those district guidelines, are the military corps or anything, obviously outside of JROTC, because there are students that do enroll and they're not in JROTC.
Right.
Does it fall in those guidelines?
So the district guidelines, once the board approves this policy, the district guidelines will be worked on, and that's going to be a collaborative effort with legal and academic services and our principals. And we do know what the board's intention is to make sure that military, academic, student clubs, et cetera, that if there are awards that are being awarded for those, that students are allowed to wear them at graduation. Now, the specifics on in which ones specifically are going to be incorporated is going to be something that will be discussed when we start looking at the actual process. I will say that the JROTC uniform and anything related to that is able to be worn at graduation per the policy.
Okay. That's all I have.
Ms. Giovanelli, then Mr. Fisher.
And thank you for bringing that one up. Also, I'd like to add, because there's been some misinformation out in the community regarding graduation and students being allowed to that they participate at one school and they can go back now. It's in the policy that they can, and then I'm just going to read it. Students who meet graduation requirements shall be permitted to graduate at their zone or enrolled home school, receive their official diploma from that school, and wear any academic regalia, such as honor cords or distinctions they have earned in accordance with district guidelines. I think it's important to note that, because we have students that are at one school for a short period of time and then go back to their original home school, and that they are permitted to graduate at the home school or back at the other school if that's what they chose to do. No one's making them graduate at one school over another, and the policy is going to is, I think, clear on that. And I think it's really important because, like I said, there was some misinformation going around in the community that students will be made to to graduate at one school and not their home school. So it is totally the option of the family and the parent and the student, not staff or the administration or board members for that matter. But I just wanted to bring that up. And thank you for changing, adding the chords and so forth in this. There was some verbiage that was changed in this past week, and I appreciate the efforts of the staff and the district, and as well as your legal staff solidifying that in the policy. Thank you.
Mr. Fisher?
Thank you. First off, in this, I would advocate, and Attorney DeBrie Bruno, we've had this discussion, perhaps defining what regalia is. And I don't know if we do that on a policy level or if we do that possibly on the administrative level, just so we can have some clarification on that, as there's multiple definitions of it. The second part, again, whether this is based on the process for administration or not, I just want us to be careful and clear, because we say school-approved organizations, so that opens up a lot of organizations, just so we're aware of that. So, and I hope that, obviously it's important to our students, but I want to make sure that our principals are helping, are really part of this process and helping drive this process. So.
Definitely, Mr. Fisher, and that's exactly why we have, I would call it a little subcommittee with academic services and legal, and we will be reaching out to the principals to get their input as the district guidelines are actually developed.
Thank you.
Ms. Jordan?
Were they not going to do a leadership chord, which would encompass any club that is part of leadership? And that would be JRTC, that would be everybody then. So you're not distinguishing or worrying about clubs, organizations, it's all one.
I will say that's part of the discussion, but until such time as the guidelines are complete, I don't want to make a promise that that's what it's going to be, but that is definitely something that's being considered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'll stay up here for the next one.
Okay, absolutely. Next is the Value Adjustment Board. Kathy Dupay Bruno will also be presenting on this topic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as the board, and we've discussed this in our one-on-ones, there's an obligation pursuant to Florida Statute 194.015 to have an appointment of a citizen to the Lee County Value Adjustment Board. We call it VAB. To be eligible pursuant to the statute, the person must not be a member or an employee of any taxing authority, must not represent any property owners in any administrative or judicial review of property taxes, and they must own a business that actually has a storefront, occupies commercial space located within the school district boundaries. The Value Adjustment Board will reorganize by July 1. Sometime in July is going to have their first meeting, and the board needs to have somebody to represent you from the citizen standpoint at that meeting at that time. Currently, the board has somebody serving in this capacity. Her name is Marion Briggs. She was appointed by the board last year. Ms. Briggs has expressed some interest in continuing in the role. She meets all of the statutory qualifications. She submitted her application for reappointment and has demonstrated reliability in attending and participating in the meetings. We have to have somebody by the June meeting so that that person can start in July. At this time, what I would like to know from the board is, would you like us to bring forward Ms. Briggs again for the June meeting, or would you like us to move forward and secure applications to bring in some other candidates for your consideration in June?
Mr. Fisher.
Thank you. I just wanted to add in, as I'm your representative on the Value Adjustment Board, I am confident in Ms. Briggs and her ability to operate in that capacity in the board, and I would support continuing with her. Thank you.
Board members, any other comments on this? Ms. Jordan?
I agree with Mr. Fisher, and I know that in the past years, the one gentleman who was our liaison was on there forever. And so I appreciate that she came forward again. So thank you.
Mr. Persons?
Yeah, I agree with keeping her. I think it'd be an excellent idea. I've met her, and she's doing a great job.
I'll agree as well. Consistency. Mr. Ribble?
I'm fine with that.
Ms. Chaviano? You have your direction?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No. Thank you. All right, we're going to allow Ms. Dupé-Bruno to exit so that she can start public comment.
Madam Chair. The school board policy provides the opportunity at this point in the meeting to address the board concerning any matter on this meeting's agenda. If you completed a public comment card, please provide it to staff. Public comment will be held at the podium in the center aisle and in front. Please be advised that the board will not respond during public comment to remarks made by speakers. Abusive language defined as swearing, use of profanity, or name-calling is prohibited. Speakers who fail to follow proper decorum in the chambers will be ruled out of order. Any speaker continuing with such remarks will be required to relinquish the microphone per Board Policy 0169.1 and may be removed from the chambers. There will be one warning. Per Board Policy 0169.1, the time per speaker is 3 minutes if there are 20 speakers or less. You will find a countdown on the big screens in the front of the room. Once your time has elapsed, the microphone will automatically shut off. Please state your name when you approach the microphone. And please follow staff's direction when lining up. Madam Chair, there are 3 speakers that wish to address the board.
Proceed. Thank you.
Will the following individuals please line up? Marge Cox, Paula Porter, and Michael Andocia. And I just want to remind the speakers that you are limited to only the items that were discussed during the workshop.
Hello, I'm Marge Cox. I'm glad to be here today. As we've talked about budget and personnel, I have additional information that I hope will be helpful to you. Last month, I gave you paperwork and an email that showed the importance of library media specialists in the schools and the data that shows clearly and over time the difference that they make for student scores. I want to help that to happen, and so this month I have paperwork that you'll get after the meeting, and I've also sent an email so you can just click on the links easily that show the strategies of getting media specialists here, what they have to go through, what are the universities that have programs that they can do online. It's a one side, though that's certainly not everywhere where they could go to get that certification, but I chose to include in the paperwork only the ones that were included in the Florida Department of Education website. Thought those were the ones that would be most likely to be helpful to the staff. I would suggest principals talk to their best teachers to see if they would be willing to make that crossover. A library media specialist really is just a classroom teacher with a little larger classroom than most classrooms are. But they are teachers, certified teachers, making a difference, collaborating with classroom teachers. Data shows again and again they will improve student scores. And not only student scores, but students learning as they are going through the learning process. So I hope this will be a helpful tool to you as you are looking to encourage teachers or other members of the community to become school library media specialists. Thank you for your time today.
Dr. Paula Porter, Lehigh Acres. As we celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week this week, it's the perfect time to reflect not just on the dedication of our educators, but on what more we can truly do to value and retain them as we've been discussing today. However, we must also recognize the extraordinary work of these educators who power our classrooms, guide our children, and anchor our community. In Lee County, starting teacher salaries approved last year at $50,000 do reflect progress. But as the cost of living in Southwest Florida rises and teacher shortages continue to grow, we must ask, is that enough? The NEA, as of April 29th, sent out a report of teacher salaries and indications across the country. Florida, the average teacher starting salary is $48,639. That makes us 17th in the nation. However, the most depressing thing that I see here is average teacher salary is $54,875 in the state of Florida, which is number 50. Teacher pay minimum living wage in Florida is indicated at $61,002. So those are very depressing numbers for us in Southwest Florida, because our teachers are not just instructional staff. They're mentors, counselors, and lifelines for students facing personal and academic challenges. Many go above and beyond every single day, buying supplies with their own money, tutoring after hours, and supporting students emotionally in ways that far exceed their job descriptions. And yet, as we have seen, many struggles to afford rent, home ownership, childcare, and even meeting daily living expenses in our increasingly expensive communities. When we talk to teachers in our districts, most are passionate about teaching, but they're exhausted, financially stressed, and questioning whether they can afford to be in this profession that they love. As you know, we're facing the concern of teacher retention. Neighboring districts offer more competitive conversations and initiatives. We risk losing our best educators to better paying opportunities elsewhere. This is a talent drain for our students. Raising teacher pay is not a luxury, it's a strategic necessity. It's a direct investment in student achievement, school performance, community well-being, and is a necessary return on investments for our students. Let's show our teachers that Lee County not only appreciates them, but we are ready to lead the way in valuing them. Thank you.
Pardon me. Michael Landosha, Fort Myers, Florida, former teacher. And that was a great report. That report on teacher retention was a really, really great report. And it kind of discombobulated me because I had some more prepared words, and now I'm rather improving. But that's okay. Because I'm one of the teachers that you guys failed to retain, which, quite frankly, is a shame, because I was also a teacher who loved being in the classroom. I loved teaching. I had no desire to be an administrator. I had no desire to be a pencil pusher at the district level. I loved being in my class, geeking out with my kids every day. That's what I wanted to do, and I would have been perfectly happy doing that until you guys wheeled me out on a gurney. But instead, I decided to end my career last year. And for me, it was academic freedom, the loss of academic freedom that teachers at the secondary level were experiencing. Some of that is outside of the control of the board, but still, as our community leaders, it's your responsibility to mitigate those as much as possible. But I can guarantee you that there are a lot of teachers like me, former teachers like me, who've moved on. And all of us have their own story. So I think the change that I want to make to what I was planning on saying in my prepared remarks is the board should probably find a way to reach out to us and talk to us and figure out why you lost us. Because for me, it was academic freedom. So that's why every time you see my smiling face, I'm talking about academic freedom. But for other teachers, it was pay. I mean, it's great that that we're starting kids, kids are coming out of college and they're getting that job and they're making $50,000 a year and they're happy about that. That's great. I applaud the district for doing that. But it doesn't do that kid any good. What happens when that teacher, they create a $50,000 a year lifestyle for themselves, which is their right, and then 5 years down the road, after their pay raises haven't increased and haven't increased with the cost of living, they're starting to hurt. And they're looking at all their friends and other professions who are doing much better than them, because here's the reality. I mean, we talk about how we as a district are competing with other districts that are paying better, but that's part of the story. You're competing with every other profession out there who would be really delighted to have people working for them who bring to the table what teachers bring to the table. You're also competing with all of them, and you're losing teachers as a result of it, because you're losing that competition. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, that concludes public comment.
Thank you. We are going to now move to good of the order or other business. I will start with Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to give a brief update on the board auditor discussion. I've sent some emails over. I want to applaud our human resources for really helping expedite that and really get some more movement and some applications out there. There are some notes, if you haven't had a chance, on the emails I sent to review the rubric. I believe the job posting lasts until the 9th, if I recall. So I'm getting a nod on that. So we're getting better, but kind of wanted to get a little bit of the board's feedback. I personally would like to see maybe a few more applications, but before we kind of start moving forward a little bit more, again, we don't want to kick the can down the road. I just want to make sure we're getting the right people. Just want to see if there's any board feedback, and in a little bit, once we figure that out, then I can set up another special meeting. So,
Board members,
Madam Chair,
any
if you
comments? I know for me, the 9th is this week, so I would like to wait until that's completely closed, just to make sure there aren't any last minute, anybody last minute putting their hat in. So that's my own 2 cents. Anybody else? Ms. Giovanelli?
I noticed that a couple, they were not able to get back in touch with them or contact them. Do we know if it was just basically phone calls, or was it email, or anything, written communication, or even a letter? I would like to see some of those.
There was, I believe, some notes in the rubric at some point. I know some, I know they've tried emails. I know they've tried calls. Some, I know one listed, voicemail box full. I can follow up on the extent of those communications. I will talk with Ms. Rivera on that and see the full extent, but I know they did try. I don't recall if there's a letter, but I'm happy to follow up with you on that shortly.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Ms. Fleming that, the 9th, and hopefully we'll get a couple more applicants. I'd agree with you. I'd like to see a little more, but, we're getting down to the wire. So I understand that too. So thank you. Thank you for the work that you're putting into it, as well as HR. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, you're welcome.
Mr. Persons?
Time to open the can of worms here. If the bill passes, where we do not have to have an internal auditor, would we want to have that discussion as a board, whether to proceed with this or not? I personally still want to proceed, but I think, should we hold off a little bit before we actually make the final decision? Or can we take a consensus of whether to move forward? I don't know what to do at this point.
Mr. Fisher, do you know you have a follow-up on that?
I don't have a current status. I know it's current status, sorry about that. I know I had asked Dr. Savage through the government relations team to follow up on some of those bills. I don't know if that efficiency bill is dead. I'm not sure on that. But regarding that, I would be in favor of, no matter what, moving forward. I think for the size district and making sure that somebody's looking at our processes and procedures. So, but that's just my own personal opinion.
Ms. Giovanelli?
And I would agree as well, mainly because the size of the district is one thing, but I think it's just part of accountability. And because this year, if it pops up, who knows, next year come back. So I would rather just be proactive and stay that way instead of being reactive. Although we're actually reactive at this point, but you know, because hindsight, I think that it could come back around anyways, and I'm hopeful that it may not see the finish line on that one anyways. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think we possibly wait till the 9th concludes, see if any more applicants are in, and then perhaps through communication, Mr. Fisher, if you want to email, and then we can set up a special meeting when we get to that process. Do I have a thumbs up, board? Okay. Is that clear, Mr. Fisher?
Yes, Madam
Okay.
Chair. Thank you, Board. Following up, just getting into my stuff for good of the order committees. Horizon Council I attended recently, and Dr. Carlin gave a great overview of our CT programs and what's going on in our community, so I thank her for that. FSBA, recently we had the nominating committee meet, and they have tentatively selected new executive officers that will to lead the organization in the future. That will be up for vote then in June by FSBA members. So, additionally, Foundation was able to attend, and many of us, the Take Stock in Children, both the new scholars, which is an amazing program, as well as the Take Stock graduation. It's amazing to see some of those kids that were able to get through that. One had a student had a 5.9 something and really had a tough childhood, I guess is the best way to say it, and really persevered for that. So that was really amazing. So outside of that, I just kind of wanted to put this on the board's radar, and as well as for the deputy superintendent. Once we kind of figure out things with our board auditor, I'd like to continue exploring. We talked about possibly waste, fraud, and abuse through some kind of partnership with the county clerk. So just kind of wanted to follow up on that. We discussed that, I believe, before this board was formally seated. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Giovanelli.
I'll be real quick. Last night, most of us attended the Excellence in Education Awards, and that was actually really nice, honoring teachers as well as students. So I think that was very nice, especially on the heels of, or actually, it's not really the heel, actually, but the beginning of Teacher Appreciation Week. And I really want to acknowledge that our teachers are really so very important and valuable, and I hope that parents and as well as students recognize that and remember that. I mean, we always have a favorite teacher that we, as a child, that we remember. I have a couple, actually. So I just hope that everyone else shares in those same thoughts today or this week, and as well as we have the Project Appreciation on Friday, which that's become one of my new favorite things to do every year, is appreciate teachers and reading the story from a student of their favorite teacher. And I think that that's a wonderful way of acknowledging our teachers and the works that they do. Graduations are up and coming right now, or coming up, I should say, and I'm excited about that. I know that we're all going to be pretty busy with that in the next weekend, not this Mother's Day weekend, but the following weekend, although I think some graduations have already may have even happened at some of the schools. And Golden Apple Awards, we attended that a couple weekends ago, and that was a really beautiful event. As always, they do a wonderful job at the Foundation for Public Schools, and so I appreciate everything that Marshall and his staff does. And they give out quite some scholarships in sending students to college, and that's really exciting that comes out of our district. Lee County does that for our students. So thank you, and see you in a little bit.
Mr. Ribble?
Okay, real quickly, just want to report on my two liaison positions. The first one being FTCU, moving right along with working with Dr. Diana Shazar over there on the Department of Education. We're really focusing in on this, the Science of Reading, which is a program we use here in the district. And this month, joining me on the reading process, or the reading train, is going to be Dr. Cuban McCoy, Mr. Jared Adie, and myself. We're having a conference call with the reading specialist for FGCU Her name is Dr. Michelle Bryan. She's the assistant professor of reading for the reading department at the school. And we're going to be focusing in on how we can get involved with some of the parents that are having problems or that had voiced a concern at some town hall meetings about reading problems some of their children are having. We're going to try to zero in on some phonics and some other things we can use to help shore up our reading program. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll probably be using some live after 5 type programs, so folks can, if they're working, they can mingle with us after work and have a reading session with the parent and their student, or we'll do like a lunch and learn in mid-afternoon type of situation. So that's what we have going with FGCU. As you know, I'm on the ITF, which is our Insurance and Benefit Committee. This is not good news. Last month I said we were trending almost $1 million over last year. Well, this past month we went from the same month last year, 8.9 in expense to 11 million. So that's $2.1 million above and beyond where we were. We are going to have a special carrier review, hopefully next week. This will be the first time that we do that. We'll really actually focus in on where our dollars are going for benefits and what can we do to address some of our bills from some of our insurance carriers. Why this one location charge X for an MRI and another location charges twice that. We're going to try to drill down on some of these issues and try to get some fixes in place. I am pleased to report, though, that we have more and more of our employees getting involved in their annual physical. We went from 18% health awareness to 43%, so we are moving the needle. And as you know, health prevention is going to save us some dollars in the long run where we're not having people being treated. So that's pretty much all I have for the ITF.
Thank you. Ms. Jordan.
Thank you. Save some for later. I would just like to, if I may ask, through the chair, Superintendent, about, I would love to see an organizational chart with the bottom down from the pear that you, or the mushroom, and how that will look from all the assistants that that are in these job descriptions. So that way when we're looking at, because when you look at the other districts in Florida, they have those like broke out where they have the top, then they have the others, and that would be great to be able to have that as a visual.
So if I may, when we presented the original, the top one page, which again, in our district, we've had the one page, and some districts only have the top one page, we did mention as part of our timeline that we will be, by the end of the summer, our intention is to have all of the departments. And so if you go to other districts, for example, and you see the department, they're often like 100 pages.
Yeah.
So it does take time for us to build that out, but that is our full intention, so that when the board has their full adopted budget, which you do in September, but our goal is obviously to have it sooner than that, that you'd have a corresponding comprehensive organizational chart. And for us, it's not just for your ask, it's so that employees know when they're taking a job, they kind of understand where it is in the organization. We would even like it hyperlinked so people can quickly drill down. Oh, I want to just see how the business services division works. Click on it, takes you right to that section. Click on that, right to my area. It just makes the organization less, it makes it more accessible to people, to the public, to the workers, to everyone. So thank you for allowing me that opportunity to talk about that.
Thank you. And then my other ask would be, to Ms. Bruno, is to have this conversation up here about a policy regarding communication, because I feel that with what just took place a little over a week ago, and the miscommunications and the way that staff was feeling, families were feeling, I know I was feeling, I just feel that we need to have something in writing on what does that look like. And that way we know if there's an incident that takes place, this is the protocol and this is what is going to take place. I don't know if that's in a policy or what that looks like, but I think that we really need to have something in writing so that way the next time we're not waiting 3 days before we find out that something has taken place.
And just if I may, so just to highlight, when a lot of the policymaking typically, really starts with a need, and then administration working with you all. And so I think what we would reflect on, and I know we had some of these conversations in the one-on-ones. Anytime, I mean, first off, just broadly, communication, just in general, is one of the biggest challenges for almost all large organizations. But I think particularly for us, when you have communications that are of a safety nature or a critical incident, those become very, very serious for us. And so we just want you to know that anytime we engage in a particular incident, that we want to rewind the tape and better understand where an incident, we want to understand the beginning, the middle, the end, how it got where we are. That's something that we're doing. We've had a couple incidents lately, some more noteworthy than others, where we just are trying to understand what that sequence was, how things were communicated, which audiences, what was a method, means of communication, because I think there is a need always for continuous improvement, and just want to make sure that we're kind of highlighting for our board, for our public, who may have specific instances in mind, that that's something that we are working on. I know Dr. Carlin, she were here today, I know she'd be highlighting, I had some notes from her basically that we have some teams working on this to try to better map this out. And so once we have a really strong procedure that we think we can visualize for you all, we'd give that to the board so that you all have an opportunity to see administratively how we're trying to respond to that, so that if that's meeting board member needs, that would be, and we'd love to participate in whatever development you want to do on policy to try to lean on best practice. What do, the very best districts in the country do related to incident communications or just to communications in general. We're always open to try and improve our response and just effectiveness of our communication and timeliness of our communication.
I appreciate it, because I know I was looking back, because I had thought, and I know I told Ms. Shivik, no, I can't even say your name now, that Vanessa, that I thought we had something in writing, and I went through every single book trying to find that, to see how that, how that affects us, how it affects the community, the parents, everybody. So I just want to make sure that, I promised the parents that I would bring this up, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because there was great, great concern. So we have to do a little bit better for that, I'm just saying. And there's always room for improvement for everything. And then I just want to say congratulations to the communication department. For receiving 3 awards from the Sunshine State School of Public Relations Association, so bravo to them. And also, I really want to say a special thank you to Adam Wright. He did a phenomenal, the Lee County Student Film Festival that just took place. It was amazing. We had kids from all over elementary, middle, high school that participated, and he just did an amazing job with that. And I just really want to thank him for that, because I know it took a lot of work, and all of them that participated in that. And again, it's Teachers Appreciation Week. Really appreciate all the teachers out there. And I know we just had our Administrative Professional Day, so thank you to all of you. And our Principal Day, we have everybody's day is this month. So I just want to say thank you very much for everything that you all do for the district and to the families and the children. And then I wanted to, there's been so many activities that have been taking place. Some have already been mentioned here. But we also had the graduation, the JRTC award ceremony and signing, which was really a nice thing to see. It's always a beautiful event. And film festival and our CTE showcase, which was amazing. It allowed people from the community to come in and see what we do here at the district. And we could be running every day, like from morning till night, at all these events and making sure, because there's so many good things that are going on out there. And I think that we have to always make sure that we're telling our story, because the negative is always much easier, but we have so many positive things that are going on in the district. I just want to thank everybody for that. That's it. Thank you, Ms. Jada.
Mr. Persons.
Well, we got good news today with the NNN being moved up 2 years. I'm very interested, as most of the board knows, into AI and technology. And in the new school, we want to have an ag program that's going to encompass this a lot. Dr. Badir, when we brought this up, the thing said we're going to have a very great ag program there, and we've continued that thought. I met with the Secretary of Agriculture, Wilton Simpson, and I asked him, I said, what can we do at this new school to make it the best ag program? He says, of course you want 4-H and you know, but you also need to have AI and technology. And like the brilliant guy said is, how do we do that? And he said, go to your extension agent, who works for the University of Florida, which is the leader in this area. So I went there and met with them, and they're all excited because they've not really done this in a high school yet. So they're working on some curriculum and a program there. So that's looking really good. And then I was invited by them to go observe at U.S. Sugar how they're using AI. And it opened my eyes a lot. They were at a particular time, they were harvesting all the sugar cane with these big combines going, you know. And there's a guy in them, but they said he's not driving them. It's all AI, all GPS. And he says not only that, but they do that 24 hours a day. They don't stop at night because they don't need to. They don't need daylight because the satellite's up there working. So it was very, very interesting there. And then I met as the liaison to FSW. I went and met with the president there, President Albritton. And I mentioned to him what we were doing. And he says, oh, we're starting the same thing at an extension of FSW in Hendry County. So they want to work with us also. So this is really starting to come together, and it's a really exciting thing, not just getting the school open earlier, but all the parts are coming together. And reaching out with our district people here, because obviously I do not do curriculum. So Dr. Shaker will keep you in the loop there. He's leading the charge there. So I'm just excited about that, and I want everybody to know. Thank you.
Ms. Shaviano?
I think everyone hit all of the things. But yeah, for Teacher Appreciation Week, thank you. I think my daughter's most excited to give the gifts and do the things this week to show that she's excited. But did a lot of school visits, of course, Golden Apple. So no, just thank you for everything everyone does, because without you, we really couldn't do anything. So I think I'll hold everything else to the action meeting, but that's it.
I'm going to hold my comments for this evening. Attorney Dupay-Bruno, do you have any?
You don't have anything for the workshop, thank you.
Deputy Dr. Superintendent Savage?
I have nothing either, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Future meetings will be something a little different tonight, so please note our longevity award ceremony starting at 5 p.m. Where we will honor dedicated services and contributions. Following that ceremony will be the board action meeting, and that begins promptly at 6 p.m. At this point, having no other business to come before this body and seeing no objection, this meeting is adjourned, and the time is 3:51 p.m.